Oh, this is an awesome jam.
Oh, you put it in the beginning? Sweet.
Yeah.
I made this hip hop beat, like just grimy, really grimy.
I'll be right back. We'll let people pile in. You guys can talk.
Yeah. But yeah, I got this. I made this pretty chunky beat in Logic, and then I was like, if I only had a beat machine, and I was like, I need to put something over this beat. So I went in and found this really hilarious, like, a National Geographic type Canadian video with like spiders, and it was talking about the marijuana spider and the caffeine spider and the crack cocaine spider, and they were like arguing and fighting and shit, and then all of a sudden it's actually I think I've got it right there. And you'll be able to hear it. That's what's dope about the board. It's got a loopback function, so it sends the signal, and anything from the computer, it'll go back to the board so everybody can hear it, and then it sends it out. So yeah, it's dope.
And raised over 100 deaths, but the mate got a restraining order, and now the spider can't go within 100 centimeters of the web. The spider built a web, found the mate, and raised over. The crack cocaine spider figured building webs was more socket.
If I only had a beat machine, I could, like, you know.
Nice.
I could have been all over it.
That's dope.
Super grimy.
Nice, it is grimy. Alright, I'm gonna kill it.
Okay. Yeah, it goes on. It's like the crack spider.
Nice.
Thought building webs was for suckers.
That's sweet. That's perfect.
Right?
It's
a little
pretty slick.
The audio only. I
Dope.
when I first made it, it was like I let it go for 3 minutes. Nobody knows when we come in or anything like that. It's pretty funny. This is episode 8, right, Jim?
Episode 9.
9. Damn.
Number 9. That's what I put in the description. Number 9.
That should be right.
Hey,
It's right.
like that classic Beatles song.
Revolution.
Yeah.
What,
Or it's from the White Album.
We can, yeah, right. We can start the show off with that because we'll start the show off with how much of an underappreciated prophecy expert in Charles Manson. Not prophecy.
Oh,
But he did.
Hey, Jeremy. Do you have a Twitter?
Yeah. It's Jeremy WRK.
JER.
EMYWRK.
Nice. Thank you.
For sure.
Sweet. Are we live?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. Hey guys.
Yeah.
Hey, we're live. Look who we got. We got Jeremy Rothe-Kushel. Pronouncing that right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
Nice.
Look, it's Jim. Everybody, say hi to Jim.
Hey. I'm just doing the shout out on the Twitter.
Yeah, and everybody if whoever's here in the chat or whatever, just be sure to let us know audio's okay, because that was driving me nuts last week, and I'm pretty sure some of you guys too, so I get it. But yeah, what a week. Again, it just doesn't stop. It's a constant onslaught. So where are you located, Jeremy? What's going on over by you?
Lawrence, Kansas.
Lawrence, Kansas.
The radical middle of America. The center of Google Earth is like 2 miles over down
No
here
joke,
to
is
the
it
south.
really?
I think so, yeah.
If you're into
Yeah.
globes and stuff, right? No.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty hilarious.
Well, Google Earth is probably, mapped, sort of
Yeah.
catted 2D, representing the globe.
No doubt, has to be. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, any of the flat Earth stuff, but it's funny.
It came up at a very suspicious time.
It did. It really did, because it feels like like it came around that time, doesn't it? I mean,
Oh yeah. Like, or is it it was the anticipation of the rise of Q and all of that. And what's interesting is, like, even if you do basic research on Cambridge Analytica, the guy, the pink-haired programmer for Cambridge Analytica who became a whistleblower, in his book they taught. I think he mentions even how they were doing diagnostics, psychometric diagnostics across the country, and they started making these interesting linkages. Like, they linked up like these sort of anti-Jewish groups with the flat earthers in terms of their information warfare, and they made that link right in the sort of right before, right, the rise of Trump and all of that. So it's highly suspicious.
it's super suspicious, man, because I've mentioned it a couple times before, but I remember just all of a sudden working with my buddy who's a fan who hangs out with the show, Terry, and he was like, "So what do you think about this flat Earth stuff?" And I'm like, "What? It just feels wrong. It just feels wrong." And I remember I never bought into it. I don't really care. I don't buy the globe thing after all that stuff, that they've presented or whatever too. So I'm not. Everything needs to be questioned. But the point is it felt like, I think it was probably 2017 we were talking about it, like early 2017, and then I want to say middle to late 2017 there was an actual like Rasmussen or Gallup poll, which had all the demographics broken down of the people that actually believe in. And I was like, well, there's confirmation for me that this is just one giant like kind of psyop situation, or for fun.
Interesting. It's interesting. It's related to other kinds of psyops, actually, where it takes a really important concept and then creates a sort of purposeful shadow or toxic mimic of it, like what you were talking about. Everything because the good thing about flat Earth is it pushes you to be like, well, I believe that I know that it's globular or something like that, but how do I know that? Oh, you're told this, the scientists say this, and then it's actually the important concept is to figure out epistemology. It's like, how am I grounded in what I know? How do I know what I know? And it sort of pushes you to think through that kind of stuff. And so then you get past to just doing reactionary epistemology, which is, the guys that I know are basically lying about what we saw on TV on 9/11 are telling me that the Earth is a globe, so it must be the opposite, or they're telling me the sky is blue, so it must be the opposite. And that's no way to do epistemology. So you actually have to then think through it on your own, and then you can come down to actually, like, scientific based. You can learn about the history of science, and you can learn about how the globe was conceived in the first place, and then the mathematics of the trigonometry in northern Egypt, and then you can then look into the way that people navigate vessels, and so you can do trigonometry in terms of that they have to bring in trigonometry in order to figure out how to direct themselves. And so you begin to sort of go through the process of figuring out how you know what you know, if you respond to it appropriately.
Right, and isn't that like kind of a zetetic, or where that falls into like the zeticism?
I don't know what zeticism is.
It's well, I'll actually get the definition and we'll bring it up on the screen here. So it's zeticism. I think this is the way you spell it.
I've heard of it before. I've heard of the zetetic eye being like a description of the way that, like, the flat Earth model looks like it's like an eye sort of shape, and like the plane inside is like the plane where your iris is on or something, and then I don't know, it's sort of like an holographic sort of description, like the small and the large like sort of mirror each other, as above, right, so below, is how I would see it, but I'm not sure if that's what it means.
We have it's a noun, a historical branch of algebra concerned with the direct search for unknown quantities. I know that it's zeticism is actually kind of like, you can't believe you the only way, you have to experience it to be able to believe it, kind of thing. It's, you know what I mean? It's like an let's see.
interesting, huh?
It is. It for sure is. Let's see.
Proceeding by inquiry, huh?
Yeah, here we go.
Investigating.
Here we go. Let's see what the rational minds at Rational Wiki, how they feel about it. It's an obscure English word. Okay. Yep, proceeding by inquiry. Yep. 19th century. It was used by Flat Earth. Okay. Advocates. Don't know who these people are. But yeah, it's fascinating.
Pyrrhonism.
Yeah. This is yeah, I don't know what to make of it, honestly. I mean, but that seems to be what so many of them clearly, I mean, obvious Flat Earth Society stuff, but seems to be what a lot of them how they fall back on it, or what they fall back on. There we go.
With no regards to hypothesis. That's interesting that was...
Yeah, I've also...
But that sounds like a misdescription, potentially, of it. Because what it actually sounds like on the surface is it means the idea of testing your geometry out practically. Basically, to me, it sounds like just be your own scientist.
Right.
Believe your eyes.
No regards to any hypothesis. It's kind of like you get into colloquial definitions where, you know what I mean? It's like, well, is this actually, like with the germ theory and all that stuff, and kind of, you know, but it's kind of like, well, what are the theories that are actually, what are laws? Do you know what I mean? Like it falls into this, like what what laws do we actually, scientific laws do we have in place? And I'm probably using the wrong I don't have a lexicon for this necessarily, so forgive me. But do you know what I mean though? It's kind of like disregarding things.
Well, they're always saying like trust the scientists. Like it's actually, that's what it's because the motive behind that, of the good, let's say the good faith motive, not the weaponized political motive, but people who say that for good faith, what they actually mean is use science. Is actually really what they mean. Is like, they're like, think scientifically is really what I think they mean to say if they were serious about that. Because
right.
Science is obviously, it's a method. It's related to experiment experience, and that's crucial to it. And it, you know, the description of Zetetics there, saying that it's based on, it sounds like it's based on doing your own approach to experimentalism. But not only the critique of it, it sounds like, is that you approach it without a hypothesis, which is the other key part of the scientific process, is that you come up with a schema. And actually, it's interesting because people sort of think through science as if it's like highly materialistic and grounded in the material world. But it starts with hypothesis. It starts with thought, actually pure thought in a way, maybe in relationship to your experience. But then you make a hypothesis, and then you do material experiment in order to see whether your hypothesis works. And actually, it's a great method for all kinds of approaches to knowledge.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know necessarily, when I've heard people arguing, I don't know if you've actually taken any arguments on on germ theory and all that stuff, where they're basically just throwing it out the window. Not throwing it out the window, but yeah, pretty much. But then taking a deeper dive into it, I just get lost in in a lot of the terminology used, and it's just been a whitewash over a lot of people too. Not whitewash, my brain. Ugh. But I don't know. I find it fascinating that there is a large group of people now, I guess, that do question everything, regardless if they've had their paradigm shattered or not. That's a positive thing. But then we fall into those categories where, well, what's true, what's not, and I think that's the point, just to have everything muddied up like this.
Yes.
So when it does come time to question things. It feels like all of this was the last 4 years, and it just really feels like somebody, no. It just feels like the masses have been bombarded with questionable truths, I guess. I don't know what that just feels right, because everything just, like skewed reporting. I mean, it just seems like perception based, insert here, insert narrative here, and this is how this is the lens through which everybody will view this story. Clearly, I mean, with clickbaity headlines, running with black or white officer shoots black, da 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 6 times, and then you open the article and it's like, wait a minute, he stole the cop's gun, and you know what I mean? It's just something absolutely ridiculous. So,
yeah, I mean the beginning of the COVID pandemic came with that, a lot of that, obviously, in terms of, and it was the perfect moment for the destabilization of the proper approach of being skeptical and of questioning, especially in relationship to motive, and then I believe undermining the powerful and practical approach to that, so that those who questioned everything actually left their people, in terms of their political people or their knowledge people or their news people, exposed to the dangers of the reality by sort of leaving everything in. Is there even a virus that exists, or do viruses exist, and then sort of a big focus on an attempt to basically portray that if people know people who are dying and things like that, then that must also then be part of some psychological operation. And then so that and then there's an aspect of this that then feels where, for whatever reason, there's been a major over substantiation of impact on like people of color, and it's not clear exactly the reasons for that. But so that this whole time I've struggled with this question of, all right, early on, people who questioned what was going on took it down to its origins in relationship to bioweapons, engineering, laboratories, genetic, associations with that. And then that then got combined with this sort of massive inrush of questioning. A lot of it, important in terms of like, all right, let's say we weren't in a pandemic, it'd be super important to think through the question of how do we know that viruses exist? What is virology? What is the germ theory? What is landscape theory, or whatever that's called? Sure. And so, but in the midst of all of this, then it feels like, okay, we've been destabilized at some level, especially here in the United States, where it's obvious we're in the middle of some crazy genocidal stuff going on. It looks like that.
It's definitely, there's something to that 100%, 1000%. Yeah, it feels all too, what's his name? The KGB defector, Yuri Bezmenov, where, going through the stages. I mean, granted, it's like a mind control thing, it's like the, break 'em, you know what I mean? It's the 3 rules for mind control, scare the shit out of us, make sure we're secure. It's Hegelian dialectic, wrapped up in whatever you want to wrap it up in. It's just wild. But then, yeah, I mean, you do get a rash of very, very, like, reactionary, responses to it with the, with the whole, you're precisely right there, where it would be a healthy educational debate over our viruses. Do they really exist, and do they exist how they've been explained to us? Or, as opposed to a time like right now, it's an awful time to be questioning that and just hyper focusing in on that, or any one thing right now. And granted, that's
what's kind of crazy is that I haven't heard one person on the news talk about your immune system and taking vitamins and fighting colds off that way. It's all about like external stuff, like, wear your mask to help somebody else out outside of you. It's all like, do something for it's for greater good. It's communitarianism, really.
Right.
The whole, it's not a law as much as it's an
amore. It's sort of like instead of science, it's like replacing it with social norms or
yeah.
Weird.
And it seems like, and then that side of it is a toxic mimic too, in a way.
Yep.
Because it includes the sort of the enlightened part, but it doesn't include the self protection part. It doesn't include the individual. It's all about the collective. Sure, the collective exists. Other individuals exist. We could call ourselves, a community, a collective, or a grouping of people. But meanwhile, the individual exists. The individuals still exist. And so if you're not putting forth pragmatic, knowledge-based solutions that grapple with all of that, then you're not, then it's some kind of weaponized thing. And that's what's so rare at this moment. I don't hear any talk in public that includes like, oh yeah, it actually could be, it makes sense to like think about others, even if you're in like mask theory and all that, like, okay, it makes a lot of common sense to knock down viral loads. We know that sort of viral loads are a thing. It's not saying this is not Ebola, so it's not like if you just, catch it or something like that, you're dead or something that, your organs are going to melt. We know this is about sort of levels of viral load. It makes sense to knock down things, the viral load, but then it also makes sense to think about immune system, immune support, the basics of understanding when people go out in the sun, they get more vitamin D. That's obviously when the summer comes, that's why it's not really so much about the virus, although it's probably partially about it, like the more light probably directly affects virus particles.
Yeah, and with this being like having them studied it or what have you, saying that it dies out in the sunlight like in less than, I don't know, like 5 seconds. Not even. I think it's even shorter than that. So you have that to factor in too, though. But the one thing is, it's like it feels like they pit science to be this religious, you know what I mean? They totally made it they weaponized that as well.
A cult of expertise or something.
Yeah, it's diabolical to do that to any society at any time.
True. It's like the demonic sort of side of like the priest class in a way.
Oh yeah, dude, and yeah, and you definitely nailed that one. Well, who knows when they hijacked?
It's definitely the demonic era that we're going into. I mean, face masks and facial recognition software and
chips.
They're
Oh yeah, and then I heard I heard this last night, and I actually did a little bit of research into it where I think Anthony Patch was actually he was on Clyde Lewis last night. I haven't heard from Anthony Patch in a long time. I don't know if you're familiar, Jeremy. Jim, you're familiar with Anthony Patch, right?
Yeah.
Work with CERN. He's broken down a lot of shit. I don't know if he
D-Wave.
Yeah, I think he's a physicist. He's very brilliant. But he was on Clyde Lewis last night, and he was talking about, they were both talking about how there's a patch or something that they're developing, and I believe it's been patented by Bill Gates as well. Go figure. Where, by the way, he's doing a show with Rashida Jones. I saw really randomly the podcast. I know. I lost. There goes all what I had left. Respect for Rashida Jones. Poor girl. But anyway, I guess this patch is like it's like a vaccine micro shot, kind of, not micro. I guess it's even smaller than that, but it's like nanoparticulate crap there's nano stuff going on, obviously nanotech involved, but it will literally, it's like it goes on your skin like a patch, and then so you don't have to keep going back for the shots or something like that to get, like third, fourth, whatever.
Sort of like turns you to OS.
Yeah.
Biological OS.
Yeah.
Automatic updates.
This is messed up. So
straight from Israeli military intelligence.
Yeah, right. It's
this is not good. We gotta figure something else out here.
Seriously, because this is like, okay, where do we draw the line as humans, or as a, because we're not drawing lines as a society and a culture right now. That's not going to happen. Period.
No.
So we're individually going to have to navigate this thing, and I don't know about you, but I don't give a shit about going to see any shows that are promoted by Ticketmaster normally. I might.
But I haven't given up on us actually making political decisions here and like rising to the political occasion.
Let's
I'm
go.
not saying there's any evidence that
No.
that's gonna happen, but I haven't
Exactly.
given up on it
Right.
as a hypothetical.
And why don't we just we'll shift over to there real quick, because the cabinet that this motherfucker is lining people with, it's literally a neocon, like a neocon wet dream, almost. I mean,
Is Cheney in there for real though?
that's what
It's not
they
clear.
wouldn't
It's not
report
clear
it.
yet.
They wouldn't report it, but apparently,
It's only he's not been. It was just one report on CNN. As far I've tried to nail, I cannot nail that down.
I can't either. I looked it up too. I was like, no, this is too much. This is just too.
And it could be. It's not. I mean, he's on the public record. Biden is in terms of saying he's a nice guy. He's a good guy. I'm friends with him and stuff
Remember,
like that. So
give him a chance to give him like no. We're gonna,
him a
yeah. He
give
was
him a
saying
chance
that,
to shoot me in the face.
right, dude. It's insane. But I feel like
Give his third heart a chance.
this makes sense though. Where the way he worded things, he was like, "You guys haven't even kind of given me a chance. You're gonna see that Biden sounded like I'm like basically speaking like this is bipartisan. Like you'll see. You're gonna like the people I put into power." And then he's like, "They'll love these Dick Cheney people." Like what, dude? And nobody's nobody's saying shit about it. Like you saw that article too, right? Where they and CNN where they wouldn't report the part about Dick Cheney. That's what we're talking about, right? Right, Jeremy? You saw that headline too, right?
Well, that was all I saw was a headline about Dick Cheney in the Biden administration, and I only saw it in this one story on CNN.
And
I couldn't find it anywhere else.
And
Is it true though?
It feels true. I can't remember the names. I wrote them down. It's in a pile over here. But you're vastly. I'm sure you've picked out a couple names from that, Jeremy. Like what that he's put in. They're Lincoln Project pieces of shit.
Which ones? I haven't yet really looked at it much, except for his COVID thing. I saw the woman from the CIA's investment firm, In-Q-Tel.
In-Q-Tel.
She's the leader on the paper that talks about public persuasion in relationship to the COVID vaccines, and then what's his name, Zeke Emanuel.
Okay.
And I haven't researched all of the rest of them that very much, but there's a lot of doctors at the very least, which to me was a good sign rather than like straight up just sort of pharmaceutical or
exactly,
only Department of Health like bureaucrats and stuff like that. So at the very least, there's some doctors on there, but these bad signs are not good.
No, and they put a couple neocons in there. Let's see what I can get here. For some
but
reason,
I'm not even clear that he's going to be the president at this point.
Whoa, I know that, and for hope for peace, I got peace. That's a joke. But hope for right. I mean, I guess it's out the window if Donald Trump would win. If they do overturn this, it's just gone. Like we're dead. Like get out of town, dead. Like. I mean, this is just going to blow up into absolute mania. But for some reason, it's using Bing as a search engine, but it's whatever. He's got a... All right, so we've got... This is what's pretty hilarious about this, actually, is... we've got...
Dick Cheney's face? What?
No, this. Right here. 10/11/20.
Oh.
This is from, a month ago. A little over a month. Did CNN... Yeah. I think this is what we read, too. It feels like what I read, right?
Well, the tweet was first posted by a pro-Trump something.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no, CNN didn't say that he would be a... Okay.
Oh, I see. It's interesting. I wonder... It is possible that it was just warfare.
Let's see.
It doesn't matter who's in the White House. We're going to end up basically in the same place with... a lot of little different squabbles along the way, but
maybe. I mean, like the stuff that's going down right now in the Pentagon and and sure, in terms of like big long-term things, yes, there would be very little that would be changed. But there's certain short-term things that are represented by like the Council for National Policy and severe like Zionists, both Christian and Jewish, like who are like the end times Zionists, where there's lots of stuff going on around missing nukes and parallel power structures that Cheney even runs and all that kind of stuff that is run by that crew rather than like the Obama Biden crew. So those are the kinds of things that I think would be different. We wouldn't even know if they were different. It would just mean that like a nuke didn't go off somewhere in the Middle East or somewhere in the United States.
People are popping champagne corks because they stopped it. We won't ever know about it.
We would never. That's true. Fair enough. True.
Right. So I wonder. Okay, so this is well, I don't know what this is, but fact check. So it's saying U.S. presidential election is over. The votes have been counted, and Democratic nominee Joe Biden has been declared the winner. However, the scene this time is quite different, with Trump refusing to concede defeat, which has seen new pieces of information making headlines every now and then, with some being completely false. The latest to do the rounds on Monday was that CNN allegedly reported that former Republican Vice President Dick Cheney will be advising Biden on foreign policy in the coming days. Social media users immediately picked up the news and started questioning its authenticity, rightfully so. However, there is no such information, although the social media is still abuzz with this piece of news. What's the fuss? We don't want to see this piece of shit ever again. I think that's the fuss.
Get him the fuck out of here is the fuss.
Unless it's in a capacity to which Christian Bale can study and possibly play a role in Vice 2, then I don't ever want to see this scum fuck's face. Anyway. He's the devil.
I can say that I saw it with my own two eyes. I'm 99.999% sure that it was not a deep fake. Michael Chertoff being interviewed by Katie Couric, doing the same old BS story about the transition between the scuffle between Bush v. Gore, helping cause 9/11. They are hyping that shit up hardcore right now, and Michael Chertoff was harping on it, and so to me that actually is a very likely plausible threat right now. Is that kind of thing.
Who is this again?
Michael Chertoff.
Michael Chertoff. What would people recognize that name from?
Michael Chertoff was the head of the criminal division of the FBI on September 11th, and then became the head of the Department of Homeland Security. And it's said that his mom was early Mossad. It looks like she was on some of the early El Al flights that were doing Israeli intelligence operations. And so he's bad news. It's interesting too because he was also like Michael Cohen's lawyer. By the time Michael Cohen was testifying to Congress, his lawyer was Lanny Davis, who had also been the Clintons' lawyer. But Lanny Davis was also the lawyer of one of the crucial Ukrainian oligarchs, Dmitry Firtash, who was Manafort's Big Daddy handler. But Michael Chertoff also worked for Dmitry Firtash at some point, and Michael Chertoff was also on the board of Carbon 9/11, the data mining. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Epstein, Ehud Barak Israeli military intelligence data mining operation, where they're seeking to replace 911 in the United. It's like a sick joke following 9/11, I think, actually.
No, it feels like that, but why don't you Carbine 9/11? I haven't heard that in a while. I mean, you know what I mean? It's been a minute. So do you want to go into that a little bit? What that is?
Sure. So it was Epstein was invested into Carbine 9/11. I don't know if it's Carbine or Carbon 9/11.
I think it's Carbine.
It was started as Reporty, and it's meant to be sort of like take over your phone voluntarily in the case of calling 911, and then running massive data analytics. And it was one of the last sort of big companies I think that Epstein invested into before he was arrested. And on their board was the whole mix. The whole squadron was on the board, basically, from Peter Thiel and one of Trump's biggest backers, a guy named, I think his name's Elliot Tawil, Michael Chertoff, former head of Israeli military intelligence, Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who's also buddies with Epstein, close to Epstein, but also Russian oligarch Viktor Vekselberg, who who was actually on the he's in the mix in relationship to a global cloud data consortium that involved like Amazon, and also he's very tied into the Russian technology super collider, I think called Skolkovo.
Okay.
And and so then there's a few other people involved on that board. Oh, what's her name? Nicole Junkerman is actually maybe the crucial sort of little known person, and the guy who's done the deep research on her is Johnny Vedmore from the UK, who did a series of articles about Nicole Junkerman because he poured through the Epstein flight logs and found her. He said there's very few, if any, flights where it's just Epstein and one other person. It's usually a group of people, like the infamous ones to Africa with like Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker and all those crews. But this was just Epstein and one other person. It turned out to be this woman Nicole Junkerman, who starts out as like a supermodel. She's a German nationality, but there's questions obviously about this Israeli connection / background, and she comes up, gets involved with like FIFA and startups and big sort of European high society, and then ends up in on this flight to the UK in the fall of 2002 with Epstein, and they end up going to a country manor owned by Les Wexner, who's basically the funder of Epstein, gave him the brownstone where they ran the operations out of in Manhattan. And so they go to this manor sort of close to like the Rothschild Manor, or a former Rothschild Manor, I think this place they went to. Fairly close, by the way, to the British NSA GCHQ, actually. It's in the hillsides around there. Right before, in an American context, they're rolling out the legislation that is the precursor to the Iraq War in the coming spring of 2003. And it said that there was 2 U.S. senators that met them at this house there. And so that then led Vedmore on this whole, investigation into who Junkerman is, because then she ends up she's on this sort of quote-unquote privatization board for the UK Department of Health, the NIH over there, and specifically around the question of data, where's the data, who's using the data, and all of that. And so that's a really big thing here, I think, is dealing with data, and that's, I think, we're beginning to understand with COVID and tracers and all of that kind of stuff, is data. Big data is really where it's at, and then who owns the data and how do they use it.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, and it all falls into I mean, these are all names these are all, oh, him again. Oh, here we go again. It's just pile them on top of each other. Just keep piling them on. One of the things, I mean, Wexner's involved here. We've got so many recognizable names for everybody, it's gross, man.
Yeah, it's a little bit much.
It's insane. So real quick, why don't you tell us, Jim doesn't know about your channel. What do y'all do over at the Antedote?
We do largely like American-focused deep politics, deep political analysis from the radical middle. Like Greg, my friend and co-host, he sort of comes from he grew up in Kansas City area, more from like a right-leaning background, sort of comes through like Ron Paul. And I come from LA, a little bit more from like progressive peace activist kind of background, then come through like truth activism. And then we met in sometime around 2015 and then started talking about politics and just sort of went to the root of things and deep into truth, no matter what it meant politically. And so, but we do a lot of like we started it right as the end of 2016 election season was happening. And so it was traced a lot through the Trump years and grown our awareness and understanding of what's going on.
For sure. And I remember when I was looking into some of your work, because we hung out on the on Brisson's channel, on John Brisson, and we've read the documents for the election night. That was super fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, we had a blast, dude. That was way too fun. But yeah, I looked you up afterward a couple days later and was just doing some digging, and I found a video of you like getting on Jim Jordan with all the Epstein. Let me see if I can pull that up actually, because and the sound will work too. But yeah, why don't you go like so? You're Jim. He's bringing the heat to these motherfuckers. You're taking Mike's. He's right up in his face. You know what I mean? Ready to rock. Like bring it. And we're making asking if you're aware on the Epstein. It was something along those lines, correct?
Yeah. It was about like, because it was interesting because we'd planned that trip to go to D.C. when Mueller was going to testify, and we were going to try to bring some depth to the reporting and to the hysteria surrounding the Mueller, testimony in the halls of Congress. And that's what a lot of people don't know is that it's really open. Our government is very, very open, actually, and there's a lot of access in terms you can just go and walk the halls, and the Congress people are coming and going, and the chairs, and you just can put like, especially, and this is what's very interesting is back when I went to D.C. with We Are Change LA, and we were focused on 9/11 truth and justice in Congress. It was very interesting. I was chasing down the senator from Vermont, Patrick Leahy. His office, of course, got anthrax in the wake of September 11th. He was one of the key guys questioning some of the pieces of the Patriot Act. And I was asking about 9/11, and I was working to put some papers in his hand, and this Capitol Hill police officer came up to me and said, are you a journalist? Who are you working for? I was like, I'm a member of the Citizens Press. I'm here on behalf of myself and the American people asking questions about 9/11 treason. He said, carry on. It was very interesting. And that's the thing, like, even if you go look at the background of like Abby Martin, who was just started working at RT, and after she got her RT press credentials to go up on Capitol Hill, she was there with Luke Rudkowski, who founded We Are Change in New York, and they were chasing down Rand Paul. And she got in trouble because Rand Paul acted sort of whiny and bitched her out to the press organization. But because she was corporate press, it was state corporate press, she didn't have as much protection as just an individual citizen had in the halls of Congress. I was not obliged to be quote unquote nice or to stop quote unquote harassing him. I could go after him and get my ask my questions.
That's wild. So I found it looks like 2 weeks ago you had I'm gonna pull it up so everybody can see here. Okay, so we've got, I hope that works. But anyway, yeah, we've got, let's just go to it. Is this like your personal YouTube channel then?
Yeah, I have to update it some more.
We'll subscribe. There you go, there's the sub. So 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was Mark Meadows, I remember. And I think I saw you getting Jim Jordan, too.
Yeah. It's from last year.
It's from last winter?
Last summer.
Israeli intelligence angles of the Mueller investigation, the counterintelligence aspects, Semyon Mogilevich, the Russian-Israeli mobster.
From Mueller, I doubt it.
Okay. But have you heard about these potential compromises, including Epstein? Have you heard anything about the Epstein compromise and any of the...
Yeah, I'm not at liberty to discuss this.
Okay, that sounds like you might have heard something.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said I'm not at liberty to discuss any kind of detail.
Are you concerned publicly about the blackmail implications? I understand. I need to ask on behalf of the American people that our president is not compromised by Israeli and Russian intelligence.
No comment.
No comment.
I couldn't believe he said no comment.
I know, dude. That's heavy, dude. What are they saying? That's wild. So you went over there last summer, was it? Or when was the last time you were in D.C.?
Yeah, last summer.
Okay. So, did you hit? Where did you catch Jim Jordan?
Just in the hallways after like a Homeland Security. That's what I was asking. I asked Jim Jordan about like in a Homeland Security context, had he heard anything about the Epstein compromise?
Right.
Because it was actually they were doing stuff about. Oh, the acting head of DHS was there. I sort of missed him. I chased him down the hallway, and I got the question into him, but he was not close enough to have to answer. But part of it is sort of like the politics of the act in a way. When you're asking, it's interesting. When I was at a USC event with the former head of the National Reconnaissance Office and the guy who what was his name? I forget his name.
Lou Elizondo.
No, I don't know who that is.
That's the dude from TTSA who worked at the National, like the To the Stars Academy. Yeah.
Oh shoot, huh?
He worked for the NRO. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah, and he's out with that too. Like I remember he came out, he didn't have an issue saying anything about it when Tom DeLonge did his first like, I'm starting an IPO, like whatever. Please give me some money. When he brought out like Steve Justice, he brought out, I'm pretty sure that was when he first introduced Lou Elizondo. But anyway, whatever. Digressing.
It makes sense, I guess, in that context of like if you're running like a fake black technology or UFO truth group.
What do you think about that? Like, I don't know what to make of it. What do you make of that whole situation?
Of black technology or UFOs?
We can do TTSA, black technology, and UFOs, but I'd start with UFOs or start with TTSA because with the weird implications. Dude, I'm sorry, Chris Mellon. I'm gonna trust a bunch of Carnegie Mellon, like nobody.
What are we, Tim Leary running the house in upstate New York with the acid test and stuff? What are we doing?
They're merry pranksters. Let's keep it going, right? Like it's a joke. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't mean to I'm digressing way too much.
That's cool. No, it's a fractal.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
A mind fractal.
This is what the show is anyway. So
that's cool.
We do. I remember seeing. I think I was watching Showtime. I feel like it was either Showtime through Amazon, and I remember seeing a commercial for Gloria Steinem. And I don't know if I feel like it was a dream, but it wasn't. I know it was real. And I remember her saying something. It was like a painted character. I can't remember precisely what it was, but it was her on a couch, like talking to somebody and saying, "Little do they know is that I'm a spook, or I want to tell my story. I'm a spook, or working in a government agency." And I'm like, what is going on? Like, it reminded me of it. Well, it didn't remind me of Tim Leary, but what's his name? Yeah, well, it did a little bit, owning it. And then I remember she popped off the mouth like a couple of years ago saying, and that confirmed that she was an actual operative.
Yeah.
But touching, I guess, from a standpoint of, from not a political standpoint, but just from a whatever standpoint, I guess, what's your take on that, the To the Stars Academy nonsense? Do you think does it look like how I look at it is I look at them as like a control the narrative and get it out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't like to put Lavenda in with them because Lavenda, there's so much of his work I love, but I'm left and right. Okay, so what's your take on TTSA? I guess we'll start from there.
Well, I imagine, there's something real about it in terms of like if you're doing a limited hangout, for example, then it would be a time where there's things that need to be disclosed or there's reasons for it. And what's the part that I think is very likely the case, that there's probably thousands of patents that are being sat upon by our national security state and the black technology corporate partners, and it's very largely because there's it's probably 0-point style energy, but also highly efficient renewable energy. I mean, even just the history of oil in this country is an overt conspiracy against small farmers, against alcohol engines, against cannabis as fuel, against cannabis as building materials and all of that. But on the side that we haven't seen is very likely 0-point energy, and we could have been off of the dirty monster, fuel apparatus a long time ago. And so I imagine, and you hear a little chatter about this, like in sort of like deep conspiracy sites or interviews with whistleblowers, that they're at the commanding heights of the controlled economy, the people who own the minerals and the fuels that are in the ground and all of that, that there's an awareness that if you take energy to basically zero, that you basically destroy the incentive, the monetary incentive potentially. That's what they would be worried about at some level. in addition to destroying the value of their assets they seek to continue running out. So I think that is really, we're talking hundreds, trillions of dollars of that kind of thought process combined with the question of how do you organize global economics and societies around monetary incentive. And I think they're silly. I actually think they probably believe it, that it's sort of they're doing it to keep things
above board. Like, yeah, we're making sure Congress is briefed on this shit, and you got, you know what I mean? Like, thank God Congress. Whoa, stop the presses. Do you mean Congress was briefed on UA? Like, give me who the fuck? What? Nobody cares. Like,
yeah.
They care, but I mean, like, what are they gonna do? I remember seeing something about demanding. Well, I'm not even gonna go there right now. But okay, so that take. But what's your take on we'll go to UFOs, and then we can go to black projects following that, because that'll fall right in nicely. So what's your take on UFOs personally, obviously?
Well, I think that there's probably two sides to it, because and the way to talk about it would be you talk about UFOs,
right.
Unidentified flying objects of some sort, right? Which is we usually were talking about like some kind of propulsion system or something like that that looks strange, or you're talking about ET, extraterrestrials, and so those are two different areas that there probably is some intersection, and I think there's a lot of reality, as you might say, to both of them. In terms of UFOs, though, to me it seems I find the whole modern narrative of it highly suspicious.
The space narrative, yeah. For me personally, it has nothing to do with flat Earth. It has just that whole narrative. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's cool. It's a sort of a timing thing for me that the rise of the standard UFO sighting is right at the exact same time as the rise of the national security state and act in the wake of the act and all that. So that just is that. Did they do the National Security Act because they met the gray alien guys, and then this was something, and it just so happened to be in the wake of World War II and all? I sort of doubt that causality, and I believe more that there was very likely ET intersections with humanity for as long as we've been thinking about who we are and coming across beings that had more power than us, potentially, and curiosity about what different kinds of people are and all of that. So that's different than the modern form of UFOs, and especially the UFO truth movement per se. I think it's mainly like a deep black operation, U.S. national security counterintelligence operation, very likely, and it makes a lot of sense. And there's like layers of limited hangouts. Like I think we were talking about the Annie Jacobson book about the Roswell was like a Soviet thing to scare.
Where it was Stalin put Stalin was behind it because he was the master propagandist, and there was actually the UFO that everybody saw, or I don't think anybody really claims to have seen any UFOs from that night, but point is apparently it was a Russian, whatever their equivalent of a C-135 would be, I have no idea, flying over, so like a giant cargo plane, and then a smaller craft jettisoned off of that craft and crashes in the desert of New Mexico. And when they discover the bodies, they pull them out and realize these aren't necessarily space aliens or whatever you want to call them, or extraterrestrials. They're actually, and this is from Annie Jacobson's book Area 51, where it's actually like kids, like some I don't know, I guess like some handicapped kids that were actually like plastic surgeried, essentially had some operations done to them to just basically, I'm pretty sure, just to what's the word I'm looking for? Not accentuate. My brain. It's not firing on all cylinders right now. But the point is just to make it like an overt, disgusting display, kind of turn these kids into just gross creatures, and they were actually children. That's from Annie Jacobson's book, which was fascinating and just kind of like whoa, but that resonated with me. for some reason. That just feels plausible, seems plausible enough, right? I'm not saying that's what happened, but I definitely would factor that into it.
Yeah, and to me that it feels like that's like on the road towards the truth of what is being described by the modern era of UFOs and Roswell and stuff like that. And at the same time, I think like someone like Jacobson is obviously, she's giving the narrative, the U.S. counterintelligence establishment narrative for, they're telling some truth about that it's likely not the gray man from space, and right. And maybe there's some Soviet involvement, but I imagine there's much more some kind of thing going on with U.S. black ops also that's not necessarily being told in that specific case. Yeah. But I think it's in the realm of like the narratives that rose around that time with the rise of like American black technology being cloaked in the question of linking UFOs to ET, so that it would just, it's how do you hide something in plain sight with a story about it ultimately. But that doesn't disparage, I think, the greater question of extraterrestrials, even human beings in relationship to extraterrestrials, even questions about that are considered around ancient times and the phenomena that's difficult to explain, or to disparage like the question of actual UFOs and people seeing black technology very likely, and the fact that they're at the very least someone in the universe and in our galaxy has high level propulsion systems of some sort that are way beyond the speed of sound.
For sure. And it feels like to me it feels like there is I've heard multiple people mention this specifically, where they say if you see a craft out there and it's black, and I feel like he was a retired, I can't remember who it was, but it was somebody that I remember going, okay, that's interesting, and noting it in my head enough to be like, okay. Where he said if you see a craft out there and it's black, it's ours, or if it's from this world, essentially from what we know today. But if it's not black, your guess is as good as mine, type thing. So I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like that's a little bit too, but it kind of I remember it resonating with me and being like, huh, and that was when I was doing a lot of like UFO research at the time too. So I remember noting it and thinking that's fascinating. I'll keep that in the back of my file cabinet, kind of thing, just in case.
It's a good way to hide some technology. If they have something that makes lights when it moves, it'd be like, oh, right. That's not from here because it's not black.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, that would be a good that's a good counterintelligence narrative, right?
Like the designs of helicopters have pretty much, inside the guts, we don't know, all that has changed, but the outside look of helicopters has remained the same for years. A lot of designs, except for like new cutting edge ones. So it's
right.
It seems like they're holding a lot of technology back. Like I would imagine that there's
Skywolf. What was that?
Airwolf.
Airwolf. Thank you.
That was a great game.
Yeah, good, crazy show. It was like when Knight Rider was out. Also,
exactly. Those are like parallel shows.
Yeah, for the air.
Yeah,
you have
up
air
here, down here.
Yeah. Yep, I remember that. They put out a video, a Nintendo game for that too. I remember just being like, "This is the worst St. Top Gun."
I totally wanted smart car like that.
Was Airwolf a robot too, like Knight Rider was, or no?
I
don't think so.
I don't think so. Maybe it was like super cool though for some reason.
All right, Airwolf.
Yeah, Airwolf. Like I think it was smart in some way. I don't remember for sure. It was so long ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so it ran from 84 to 87. Very short-lived.
Very short-lived.
8.1. I'll just do this here.
Impressionable years, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Like.
So we got, high
technology military helicopter, exotic missions, espionage, Cold War theme.
You gotta be kidding me. It's got, hey guys, look at, I mean, 8.1 out of 10.
Oh, shit.
TV.com. How can anybody rate it that? Don't even barely remember it. It's only because of the name that I remember this fucking show.
It's like Tom Clancy A-Team.
Yeah.
That was a great, dude. I watched the A-Team religiously.
The A-Team was a great show for sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I guess if we're gonna look at all this stuff, kind of how it fits in, not I guess from a political standpoint. Oh, but I mean, secret technology and black ops.
It's pretty big,
Black projects. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many billion went in this year, but I'm sure it was 500 at least, something ridiculous, some gaudy number.
What about the deep underground bases? Like I've heard
what I was thinking.
Like they could take like submarines like way into the Midwest, like underground, and like I don't know if they can go all the way through. I know there's a lot of secrets at the Submariner base. Like up in here in Washington, there's one. And
we should, when we have James on, we should definitely bring this up.
Yeah.
He doesn't usually, yeah.
I used to have a neighbor that was his son was a nuclear physicist. Nuclear. He was a nuclear physicist in a submarine, and he was always talking about the angle of the dangle is what they called it when it would your attitude would be down or up, like everything would be sliding around.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I can imagine them. It makes a lot of sense when you've seen those pictures of like the drilling machines in terms of the deep underground military bases.
Boring machines?
The boring being like sort of nuclear powered, probably diamond tipped boring machines. And you can imagine they readily make a submarine shoot off the coast, and especially like all those the Air Force bases there in California on the coast there, built during the Cold War. You'd imagine. I mean, even the Getty is sort of an overt. It's the first
What's the Getty?
The Getty Museum was rebuilt over many years in Southern California, and it was
like
built
Getty
into the side of the mountain.
Getty images.
The photographic images. The Getty estate, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
Very cool.
Right, they own the Getty images, and so they built, and there's lots of strange dynamics to the building of it, and who's involved, and the Queen's involved, and it's crazy. It's sort of the biggest sort of private building project in a long time, or something like that. And it's built into the side of the mountain, on the side of the busiest freeway in the country, the 405. There, just a little bit north of the 10 in West LA. And it's said by there's a guy who's an NSA CIA contractor whistleblower named Stephen, what's his name? Truth Cat Radio, Stephen Kelly, who basically reports that there's many levels deep there, and it's involved in the sex trafficking network, and it's in a big art museum, and they have lots of art restoration and preservation, and it's said that basically a lot of the art that was collected and or looted and pillaged by all aspects of sort of the Western elite it's sort of a bunker.
It's
for
vaulted
them
in there.
The future. It's a vault. Yeah. It's sort of like the Crown Jew golden vault.
Wow, that's insane. That's insane. Yeah. I know that art is a big money laundering avenue.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Buying ridiculously overpriced things.
It's actually the perfect one, right?
It is
artistic value, like how even real estate has to be grounded to the ground.
Yeah,
art can just be how much you want to pay for it.
And if you're a big collector, like I think it was Nathan Rothschild, he had this. I don't know how many artists he collected, but he bought a bunch of these like huge like life-size bronze gorilla sculptures. Like some of them were even like bigger. And they were beautiful, and they were in this like museum, and then the artist died like a year later, and I'm sure that he had insurance on the guy, and after the artist dies, like his whole collection would go way up in value. So it's like it seems almost like an investment, for the wealthy.
Makes sense
in general, but
Yeah. One of the things we were going into is like who's in charge of like, is it just Pentagon control? I've wondered that. Like who, I mean, with the defense bill or defense budget, that lumps in all the black projects, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting is the question of the parallel government, where it's a lot of the black technology is so off the books that it's basically largely been almost totally outsourced, at least in terms of building it to outside of the government. And I think what's the name of that program? The parallel programs. What's his name's movie was named it. The Doctor.
Fucking Stephen Greer.
Stephen Greer, yes.
He is reptilian.
He's very strange.
He is a weird dude.
Yeah.
So weird.
Oh, it's so interesting that 9/11 was more controversial. He couldn't answer directly the question of 9/11. It's more controversial than the questions of extraterrestrials and trillions of dollars of black technology.
Oh, you heard that too, then, right? You heard that episode?
Yeah.
That was pretty mental, dude.
That's not a talking point.
Was about September 11th, and he basically said that he had a guy who was in the Pentagon and who was an eyewitness to certain aspects of it, but that he couldn't say anything while he was alive because his family would have died. And he still didn't say much.
Right, I mean,
even though the guy was dead, supposedly.
Yeah, and also, who cares? Like, you're being, like, I don't understand that guy, man. I really don't. What was the name of that movie?
The one I was thinking was Unacknowledged.
Unacknowledged, yeah. And then the newest one. I don't want to give any props, so don't go watch it or whatever. Don't pay for it. What is it? It doesn't matter. I don't know.
I don't know. I
feel like that's James Fox. They feel like they're really closely connected. I'm sure there's some weird connection there too if we were to dig in a little bit.
But that before I forget that name, Unacknowledged, USAP, Unacknowledged Special Access Programs.
Yep.
And that's the important thing, I think, for us to know and to think about is that the way that the so-called governance has been split is via these unacknowledged special access programs that have all been run for decades by the military contractors. And so I think that is the case where even a president is, you don't really have the need to know, Mr. President.
Barely read in. Yeah. Just
plausible
barely.
deniability.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yes, well, in their case. But sometimes they're interested. You get the sense that all of them, like, at some level get interested. But then there's the Bill Hicks scenario of the film of Kennedy from another angle or something like that, and they all know their place or whatever. That's assuming that they
were all planted. Like, that was kind of because the umbrella thing doesn't make a lick of sense, and these are all characters playing in a giant psychodrama. It does feel like that. And by the way, you guys, I'll go get this probably before the show ends, but I was walking by about to feed the dog, and right over by where I put her food, there's a bunch of old files and stuff, and I caught the back of it, and it was a Time Life, like an original Life magazine, and it was I picked it up, and it's like perfect shape, and it was JFK, the life and death of JFK from 1963, so whatever, and it had my grandfather's name. Yeah, it was from my grandfather.
Wow,
that's
mint
cool.
Condition. I'll go grab it.
You should go grab it.
Remind me.
We should check it for the Mandela effect. With the limo supposed to be longer.
Oh shoot! I didn't realize there was a Mandela effect to the JFK.
Yeah, there is.
I remember I went over that. I poured over it too. I picked it up. I was like, "Holy shit!" And I was like, paging through it, and I was super careful.
So
and I remember looking at the car, and it's a limo. It's long, and I did like 3 takes. Like, I don't remember the car looking like that. And then I just put it away. I didn't say that in my head, but I remember saying in my head, I don't remember the car looking like this. Like, fascinating. I will go get it. I'll go get it right now. Screw it.
Cool.
Super weird, right? Give me 1 second, guys.
So Jeremy, do you know?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Eli Whitney?
Like the cotton gin.
Yes, the cotton gin. I learned about.
I don't know much about it though.
I learned about him in school. Do you remember like anything specific like
No.
about his race or anything?
No.
Okay. 'Cause I always learned I learned that he was black, and that like it was like super revolutionary because he invented this machine that made picking cotton easier, and it was like that to help out the slaves. And that's like
I never heard that. I don't remember that.
that's like what I remember from school, and then I got this encyclopedia from a it was like from 1950, like from a garage sale, and I looked it up, and it had Eli Whitney, and he was white, and I couldn't believe it because I remembered him being black, like remembered like the story about it, like, and I don't know, I had a friend that remembered that also, that he was black, but I'm not, you know. I've been asking people, but nobody really remembers that well.
Interesting. I just don't remember learning much of anything about him or the cotton gin.
Yeah, I was just curious. But yeah, let's check out this life.
Yeah, this is crazy.
That's awesome.
So it's got my pops.
Wow, that's cool.
63. Yep.
What year?
Wow.
1963?
I looked when I was paging through. I was like, when exactly was this public? You know, when was this? There's no date. There's no.
And did he write his name on there, your
My
grandfather?
grandfather did, yeah.
Wow.
November 22nd, 1963. That's obviously. the date.
Wow.
Um,
Interesting.
Yeah, look at that. I can get more light.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
Jackie and stuff. Huh? Look at it's incredible shape too, huh?
I know. I was shocked when I pulled it out. Like it's just got like a little stain. Right there.
Yeah.
Nothing too.
Authenticity.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's so much, and as I'm looking through it, I'm looking through this. I'm, you know, obviously have a different lens to view this through. You know, I will find the car though, because they take shots, and the crazy thing was, it's like the photos from this, where the guy was actually, you know, taking film photography. Either that or he was taking video photography. So if it was Abraham Zapruder, I don't know. Because the Zapruder didn't drop till the 70s, right?
Right.
So this is wild right here. Okay.
The 9/11 paymaster was also involved in the Zapruder buyout.
Who was?
The 9/11 paymaster.
Of course.
Yeah, what's his? I forget his name.
This is wild. So we got split second horror.
Whoa.
Yeah, dude. It has
Wait a minute,
all the frames. I'm not kidding you guys.
Move your arm
Frame
there.
by frame.
What's it? How many doors are on it? Is it a 4-door or a 6-door car?
It's a 6-door.
It's a fucking 6-door. I don't remember it. I remember it being a 4-door.
No, it feels like it's a 4-door. I'm
Had
wrong.
a front
I'm
seat and a
sorry.
back seat.
Yeah.
Does that have
Yeah.
4 rows of seats
But
or 2 rows of seats?
Look at this though, guys. It's
2 rows. It looks like.
right. There's 2 rows, and the governor's in the front with his. It's super tricky. Now, I'll put this back up. I will, but here's the crazy thing. Where is it? Oh, it says right there's a there's a sign here. Right here, as you can see, that's the back of a street sign. There, and it says right here, first 2 shots. It says, past the book warehouse, the president turned to his right to wave to someone. Then it's shot 1. It says, just as his car passed behind the road sign shown in the foreground, the first bullet struck him in the neck. I was like, how convenient is that? How convenient is this? That's right went through my mind when I was like, how convenient is this street sign for shot 1? You know, and I'm looking and I'm just like, huh. So we go, that's frame 1, which is right here.
Wow.
Which you can clearly see the sign in front of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then and as you can see in the second photo or third, whatever it is, there's the sign still right there. Again, it looks like either that or it's just too perfect of a frame. So then what we have here is, and 2, yeah, this is 2. So he shot it, bam, bam. I know this looks black and white into the camera, but it's not. This is actually a color photo. And photo 2, it is a 4-door, by the way, but it's like there's
three rows of seats. Is there?
Yeah, there's 3 rows of seats, precisely 3. Because
is there like
if you look
little
right
frog
here,
windows behind the
this guy,
front?
the governor, this guy,
Oh yeah.
he's leaning his head back towards them. That's his head is right here.
Yeah.
He's
Oh, there's
leaning back
another
like
row of
this.
seats right behind him.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
It's so weird. It's hard to.
Is it facing? Are they the middle row of seats facing forward
I can't
or
see.
backwards?
It's a good question, Jim. We couldn't see that. Let me try to pull these photos up off of the.
Look online and see if it's the same
Wouldn't that be
on.
funny? These are like messed up online, and like we actually I
It's-
have the real. Oh, here.
You have the originals.
Yeah, I have the originals. Okay. This is you can clear. It's plain as day. 3 rows. Look at the car in the top one.
Yeah. It's,
Oh, right. The
Yeah.
okay, the driving row, the governor, and then Kennedy's.
Yep.
Oh
You
yeah.
don't ever see that in any fucking Zapruder film. I've never seen it. Have
That-
you guys? I don't.
That was
I
Mandela
don't remember
effect.
Yeah. Funny how we don't.
Do you remember the
that.
movie
Yeah.
JFK? I
Yeah.
I saw it in the theater. They played it
Whoa.
over and over again.
Back and to the left.
Yeah.
This is what Israeli nuclear intelligence agent Arnon Milchan wants you to see.
Right. This is just like this whole thing. It's just like, and then they go into LBJ's life. It is
Whoa.
way too like,
Oh boy,
dude.
that picture is a creepy picture in the first
It-
place.
isn't it?
And just the way the angle with the hand and stuff, and Jackie and these weirdos in the background. It's just,
They're like in an attic somewhere or something, like a tight little
are they in a
spot.
cockpit or your grandma's attic? It's
Yeah.
not clear, yeah.
And then we have the little did you know kind of thing. Like, I'm looking at
Time Life.
Robert Kennedy. What?
Time Life too,
Oh,
right?
no.
The looses and
Are there ads in
Yeah.
there?
I don't think so.
So,
No.
sorry to cut you off there.
It's all dedicated. Like, that's the back page.
whoa, dude.
Hey, isn't that cute?
that-
That's cute.
No, that's Q squared or Q parallel.
Okay.
Did they put that?
I think Q plus is Trump.
Did they put that boy in a skirt?
This
A
is-
kilt. It's a kilt,
It was
bro.
a kilt. Scottish right Freemasonry.
So I wonder.
And Zapruder was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Jewish
was?
Freemason, yes.
Of course he was.
Illuminati
That's a wild-
confirmed.
Oh, Berlin, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you remember like right, there's like the parallel, they tried to make a parallel of Obama's Berlin speech and Kennedy's Berlin speech.
Oh,
They were not the same.
not at all.
Berliner.
So yeah, I wonder if someone can pull up the photos. See, and this is what I was looking for too. This is the front page. You open it up, and you have that. You got the portrait, and then you've got.
Oh my gosh.
I'm looking through all this, and I'm like, where is the date? When was this published? There's nothing here. And the way it reads, 1963. So it had to be, I mean, November 22nd.
Yeah.
To find out. This is like pumped out to everybody.
Like immediately?
I feel like it.
But wait, no, but those how about the shots? Where do those shots come from?
That's a good. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. It feels like Zapruder. I'm gonna go to it right now, and we're gonna figure this out really.
I mean,
quick.
it is the case that it was Time that gained the access to the Zapruder film via, I believe, via the 9/11 paymaster. What that?
Oh shit.
I think his name's Feinberg. Is that his name? 9/11 paymaster. There's another very strange guy who was running Time around that time besides the Luces, the guy who was the highest level U.S. Army psychological warfare guy. I forget his name. What's his name? He's interesting. There's very little written on him.
Oh, Michael Aquino.
No.
Or
from-
John Alexander.
No, older. The previous generation. He was
I know
like
what you're talking about.
Eisenhower's guy. He was the first guy into like one of the death camps and stuff. and and he was the one who sealed the narratives, and I mean, very strange guy.
I've heard of this guy before, but I don't remember what his name was.
He was Time Life.
The photographer. The photographer, right?
No.
He was a Time Life photographer.
He's a chemical weapons expert and the highest level military psychological warfare chief during the World War II era.
Shoot.
Looking at life.com.
And all of his papers are at the Eisenhower Library over here in Kansas, and they're under severe secrecy. Apparently, really? Yes. There's all I can find is like one book that's like, you know, very expensive, real short, and like some PhD that I can't find about the guy.
Huh.
Oh, CD Jackson, that's his name. CD Jackson.
Like CD compact disc, like his.
Yeah, but it's like Charles Douglas or something like that. And okay. I actually got a book all about the Dakota Hotel or the Residence Hotel in New York City, and it's about him, like actually trying to hide his Jewishness while also trying to exclude Jews from being allowed to live there, because the original name is Jacobson, C.D. Jacobson, C.D. Jackson, very interesting figure, and he's all goes from chemical weapons to psychological warfare to Time Life, and there's still very little known about it. Too? Yeah.
That's where he closes it all out. Oh, it's closed.
I think so. I think he helped start the Bilderberg Group too, or something like that. I don't.
Yeah, that's why it's secret.
Oh yeah, managing director. There, CD General. Oh, he's a general. Oh, of course, he's the highest level chemical weapons, psychological warfare. General Charles Douglas Jackson, 62 when he died in 64. Was a United States government propagandist and senior executive of Time Inc. As an expert on psychological warfare, he served in the Office of Strategic Services in World War II and later as special assistant to the president in the Eisenhower administration. He was born in New York City.
The Dakota is the one that Frank Olson jumped through.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense now because the CIA would be posted up in that. Yep. 13th floor. Yep.
I still haven't read through that entire book. Oh, there it is. During 1953 to 54, Jackson was key in establishing the Bilderberg Group and ensuring American participation, and he attended the meetings 54, 57, all the way to his death, basically.
Wow.
This guy's a piece of scum.
So he's like the founder of Mossad, perhaps?
No.
Secret?
That's the only thing he didn't do.
Speaking of, when did the Mossad actually come into when was it founded, kind of?
Well, probably it was founded right in the very begining there.
So right when they're making the nation state, correct?
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting because it looks like maybe, I don't know how this all went down, but the U.S. was working with the former head of Nazi intelligence, Galen, because Galen had the networks. He had all of the counterintelligence networks in relationship to the Soviets. And so he was brought into the American fold. And I think he was actually involved with helping stand up Mossad. I'm not sure about that, but I mean, it's interesting because the networks that started Israel were obviously already well established,
right.
The fact that the Rothschilds actually owned, some 50% of the land or something, like, and created the imperial document, to solidify the deal for Israel to be founded in terms of the Balfour document. So obviously those
Reinhard Galen, is that his name?
Yeah, Reinhard Galen.
Reinhard. Okay, I was like, where is his name? It just stumbles into my brain.
And I wanted to look up the name of the 9/11 paymaster who also was involved in purchasing the Zapruder film for Time.
So wait a minute. Yeah, this doesn't. So the guy, the paymaster.
Feinberg. Yeah. Kenneth Feinberg. Look him up.
Of a paymaster.
Oh, he was in charge of, because they didn't want because after they did 9/11, probably Israeli military intelligence is like the chief institutional fixed point of reference for that. After that, then they had all these potential victims' family members legal cases. The Silverstein was dealing with stuff. The airlines were dealing with stuff, and so they wanted, and there was the one federal judge who's basically going to be in charge of all of the cases. What's his name? The 9/11 judge.
Oh man, I can't remember. I'll look it up too.
And he worked with the U.S. government to basically discourage any of the family members from actually taking it to suit and to a trial. And so they offered up all this money. They put these billions of dollars together to be distributed to the family members, basically hush money, really.
Right. It feels like that's like a civil suit come at you know what I mean, sort of situation where it's like we're giving payouts to families. I remember that happening.
Yeah.
Payouts to families of the victims. Yeah, I don't know. The first thing I get come up, new 9/11.
Alvin Hellerstein
Alvin Hellerstein
is the name of the judge who, and his son was actually involved with the Israeli military intelligence company that was at the epicenter of the quote unquote 9/11 security airline breakdowns, ICTS. And his son was involved with them. Total conflict of interest. But the paymaster, his name is Kenneth Feinberg. And you should see all the things. He was involved with the big oil spill in the Gulf.
Of course.
But also, I believe, Zapruder. But I can't remember exactly what he did. But I think he bought it for time.
It's Palms. Oh, that's a radio show host named Kevin. You said Kevin Feingold or Fine? What was it?
Kenneth Feinberg.
Kenneth Feinberg. Okay.
Yeah.
I had Russ Feingold on the brain, bro.
Yeah.
Oh God. Kenneth.
Oh, agent. He's the court appointed. Feinberg has served as the court appointed special settlement master in cases including Agent Orange product liability litigation, asbestos personal injury litigation. And I don't know what DES cases are.
The town that I lived in with my ex-wife was the Agent Orange town, Anniston, Alabama.
Oh, shit, dude.
Yep, where it's in Monsanto we could see from our front porch.
Wow. Oh, my gosh, dude.
Yeah, and like it was literally like take a city of take any city out of small town USA, but we're talking 100,000 people almost, maybe 80,000 people at the time, and then today, imagine like that city's still standing, abandon it, and maybe pepper in 15,000 people. That's what the city's like now. It's super weird. And there's like another little closer to the interstate off of not 65, but I-20. It's like halfway between Birmingham and Atlanta there, literally like right about the halfway point by Talladega. And yeah, it feels like everybody like moved from Anniston to Oxford, which is the little town right on the interstate there. Feels like everybody just like up and moved. It's gross though. The city's just I feel bad.
Sounds horrible, dude.
Yeah, it's awful. I remember one day, some guy some guy was just on the property, and I was the only one home. And I remember like running outside, like, "What are you doing on the like we just inherited the house, like whatever." And he's like, "Oh, I'm from da da da." He showed me like a badge and a thing, and I'm like, "What is this?" And he's like, "Everything's fine. I'm just making sure there aren't any DDTs present still." And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me, dude? Like, this is how we're doing. Shit. Do you hear that?
What?
Did you? No, okay, you didn't.
Yeah.
I think it's my headphones. It's cutting out.
Oh, and it didn't cut out on this side.
Okay, good. That's a good sign. But yeah, it's man, because the weapons depot, the army depot, was like right up the street from the. I'll look it up actually. Just
I'm looking it up.
Anniston. I think it's spelled ANN. Yeah.
ISTON.
Yep.
PCBs.
Yep, dude, it's disgusting, man. They're everywhere.
Monsanto.
Literally,
this is just so horrible.
We could see Monsanto. That's what like haunts both of us probably is I still have like this weird like picture window frame photo in my head, like, you know, just that burn in my brain of what, because it was just like a gloomy sight, if you know what I'm saying. It was just gloomy to think about too. That, oh, there's Monsanto, like right in front of us, and we had a steel mill closer to us. So we had a steel mill, and then the next plot of land down the hill that we could see, you know, over the horizon type, over yonder, is right there. It's Monsanto. It's like just,
Boy.
yeah. And it, you know, my ex-wife was like super. I only knew about Monsanto because of her. You know what I mean? Her research into like PCBs, all these different things, and you know, luckily she was hip to a lot of that shit. When I first met her in Austin, you know, she was turning me on to a lot of, you know, holistic doctors, cool shit, you know, like things that I needed to know that I wasn't, you know, necessarily privy to at that point. You know, I'm 22 years old, whatever. So luckily I learned a good amount of shit from her.
That's cool.
Yep. But yeah, I'm not sharing the screen anymore. I feel like I'm sharing it. Jim, what's up with you, buddy?
Oh, not much. My can you hear me there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Real quick though, let's tie it back around just really quick to the UFO thing, where I find it. Have you looked into any of Peter Levenda's work, Jeremy?
No, I've heard of him, but I've never read any of his stuff or listened to him. I should.
Yeah, it's great. Like Sinister Forces, the Sinister Forces trilogy. He'd been researching it for 25 years and finally just said, screw it, I'm going to write it. He kept trying to sit down to write it, and more shit just kept piling on to the you know, the investigation.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck, man, shit. So it ended up being like, it's called Sinister Forces. It's 3-part trilogy, and each one is just better than the next. And it's a grimoire of American political witchcraft. And essentially what it does is it brings a thread through the mounds and what the hell's going on there to essentially Charles Manson, right? How all these connect. It connects everything from like even some weird little synchronicities from that Hellier show. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that. It's pretty.
Paul Hellier? You mean the
Hellier?
Canadian guy?
No.
Oh.
It's a town in Kentucky called Hellier.
Oh, yes, all right.
Hellier.
Yeah.
And it's on Amazon and whatever. There's Greg Newkirk and his wife do it. But anyway, it's super creepy and fascinating. There's a bunch of like really fucked up synchronicities in there. But the crazy one was that they tied their synchronicities in with both Mothman and all kinds of Fortean crazy, you know, what's the guy's name who wrote, why does my brain die on that? The guy who wrote Butterfly Effect. No. What's the name of it? Who's the investigator? Why am I blanking on his name? Everybody knows who he is. He did the Mothman prophecies. John Keel.
Oh.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this little part of the world where Point Pleasant is, and Lavenda digs deep into this, as well as like West Virginia, you know, the Ohio River Valley or Basin or something like around there. And basically what he figured out was that this area has like a weird connection to serial killers, crazy, basically just crazy, right? Like outright crazy, like a whole town. There's this whole town, I can't remember what the name of the town was, but someone in the chat might know. But basically what it gets to is all of these things are tied together, and you can tell while you're reading it that Lavenda's like, damn it, I don't want to tie Process Church. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to tie Kenneth Anger to this, to this, to this, to this, to this. And it's just, it's wild, the connections that are made. Wow. And you could tell he like did some Maury Terry, the guy who did, I don't remember the name of the book. I can't remember. I think it's like the root of all evil type thing, you know, like what is evil kind of book.
Huh.
And he's more of a right wing, comes from the right wing, I guess, that dude, and more of like an evangelical Christian, but doesn't, I guess he kind of separates himself. I don't want to really say too much there, but basically what it is he basically breaks it down to, it's all intelligence agencies, and this is where we can draw that correlation, I guess, to Manson and to everybody, to Gloria Steinem, to Timothy Leary, is all these people are connected through, some intelligence arm, I guess, or tentacle. And that definitely seems to be the case of anybody, with culture, social engineering, or that kind of thing, or I'm sure everybody's heard where people, I don't know if it was Mark Devlin, but breaking down rock stars and their connections to the intelligence agencies, like
intelligence
Dave
and royalty.
Yeah, we have a lot on the books. Like we're on the record. We got Jim Morrison. His dad was,
Army or
Alpha
Navy
Tonkin
general.
Admiral. Yeah.
Or Admiral.
We got him. There's a million Sting and his connections to. They just go back further.
Copeland.
So many. Yeah, it's insane.
And there's the MK stuff.
Right.
With the kids and the rock stars and all that crazy military base.
Wait a minute.
Sort of stuff.
Wait, what are you thinking of? What do you know?
I think it was Kathy O'Brien was talking about it. Maybe growing up and being taken to this military base where they taught her how to play the guitar, where she was supposed to be a country music star, and it's where they taught these
You talked to
MK.
Kathy O'Brien?
I didn't. It was from an interview that she did. I watched it a long time ago.
What do you guys think of Kathy O'Brien? Jeremy, do you have an opinion? Do you know who this is?
Yes, it's interesting that one time at during We Are Change LA years, there was a proposal to do an event about MK Ultra, and with the key speaker being Kathy O'Brien. And then what was very interesting, and they added this on, and I didn't know about what was going to be involved with this, was Roseanne Barr was there, and she said that she had a history of mind control or abuse or something like that.
Now we know that she has DID, multiple.
Oh, multiple,
diagnosed.
That's right.
Wow.
And then what's interesting too is then they had this guy who was now, and it looks to me now that he's very much Scientology associated, psychiatrist who did a book about MK Ultra, and it's so strange. The beginning of the book basically says he thanks U.S. intelligence or something like that, because without them I would be in gulag. It's the exact phrase that he uses. I mean, it was and this event was very strange. I didn't there's all these guys in the back with the black suits and stuff like that. It was basically Scientology. And they looked like they were doing some kind of event security, or at least sort of some kind of security for her, maybe even. And the whole event to me struck me as a sort of a psyop of some sort. And I didn't know what to think of her. She seemed, interesting, but to me, I could feel like the innocence of her heart actually when I talked to her. But I got the sense she was handled still.
I wonder if what's his name, what's Mark something.
Her husband slash
handler.
Handler.
I mean, if Handler seems like right. I mean, let's be realistic though. I mean, when we look at the salacious trash being peddled by people like Sarah Ruth Ashcraft or whatever the fuck. Her initials are SRA. People, get it together. Satanic ritual abuse. Like, come on. That's a tell. It's like the Dr. Andy Kaufman shit. That's another tell, in my opinion. I mean, I don't care. I'll run with that all day. He's a quack. And I know that's a derogatory, anti-conspiracy. I don't give a shit. That guy's a fucking quack. That's who I think of when I hear the word quack.
Definition. It's sort of a good, it's a good.
I think of Andy fucking Kaufman right away. It just pops right in. I don't have to do anything. No additional wiring, no batteries, nothing. But no, it just feels like the salacious trash that Sarah Ruth Ashcraft peddles feels like, I don't want to be mean, but it feels like it's Kathy O'Brien type. Like, she definitely has to name the names that this woman named in the book, right? In Transformation of America, saying Dick, look, I want to. It's awful. I don't want to believe any of that happened, right? That's awful. But if any of it happened, I do want to believe that it was Dick Cheney. Who doesn't? Because he's the fucking devil. But I mean, the names, and I believe it's actually where when you go into Franklin's scandal, you can actually kind of compare notes, right? I believe I feel like you can.
Oh, interesting.
Where in Franklin cover up, or within the Franklin scandal, it's talked about how some of the kids were telling their stories. And have you heard the Hunter S. Thompson stuff, Jeremy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so basically, one of the kids is giving his retelling.
This is Franklin?
Yeah, this is Franklin. He says that they were like blindfolded until whatever, and they're being flown, and he says he remembers being flown to McCarran Airport, not McCarran, but Las Vegas, because he heard, them say it over the speakers wherever in the plane or wherever he was. And he said, I remember him picking somebody up and then them flying back, and they went to Bohemian Grove after this. Okay. And they all went, he could name the spot, but it wasn't named in the book kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? And then, but you can deduce that that's where they're going.
Yeah.
And then you also have, when they get there, the kid is like, I was forced to participate in some disgusting sexual behavior. And then he said, Hunter, the guy who was filming it, he words it like that. The guy who was filming didn't want to have anything to do with this, but it felt like he was forced to film it, which was him, I guess, sodomizing another boy in front of another dude while this dude was behind the camera for the whole thing. And it's alleged, he basically says it was Hunter S. Thompson without
behind the camera.
Yeah, but he didn't want to have anything to do with it. It was and when I'm thinking about this, I'm going, oh shit, no, can't believe, no, I can't buy this one bit. But then, so I wrote it off, and then I'm doing a little bit of research. I'm like, oh shit, and then I'm thinking Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail. Oh shit, that makes. Why was this guy never targeted? You know what I mean, kind of thing. Like yeah, all the shit he's talked. How is this dude still walking around? Well, if there's any blackmail out there,
he's sort of a made man. It's interesting that then puts him in the Zapruder role at some level potentially.
Go. And
I mean, it's obviously not the same because it's not the same scale.
It's the same playbook, right? I mean, it is technically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know much more about Zapruder. What's the deal with Zapruder? Like his background? Have you looked into it at all, or?
A little bit. Like his daughter put out a book fairly recently, and I ran into it at the library, and then I looked into it a little bit, and he was 33rd degree Scottish Rite Jewish Freemason, and he took the day off and went to actually the location of his offices I think is important too, because in a lot of these kinds of deep events, the things that are talked about the most are usually sort of pointing you either 90 degrees or 180 degrees, either just geographically or theoretically in the wrong direction often. So we drove through Dallas with one of my best friends, Joe Gell, on the way from the East Coast to LA, and we went through Dallas and visited Dealey Plaza. It looks like Hollywood Studios to me. I mean, the way it looks. It's not like anything I've ever seen in a big city in the United States, where it looks like it was built as a mock-up of the center of a town. Right. And now they have the museum. They have the official museum in the book depository building, and then there's the conspiracy museum across the street. And it's all in the wrong direction. If you go, and I believe it's directly across from the plaza from the book depository building, where it's a building called the Daltex building. That's where the uranium interests were. That's where the high level ADL connections were. The guys who helped architect the whole John Birch JFK is Bin Laden or something like that, right. Guilty of treason and all of that, and the scheduling of the event is all out of the Daltex building on the other side. And I'll bet you that there's also the case that there was, even if you think about the snipers and all of that, there's probably a lot of activity in that area additionally, at the very least, in organizing what went down. And so who knows, the delay of the public release of the Zapruder film, it's obvious that there was something being hidden.
Bunch of frames missing, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, and we're talking literal cutting room floor type shit. Yeah, I don't know how many frames precisely. We'd have to get the freight train Fetzer on here to talk about that, but I think he's on Michael Deacon right now, actually, probably.
Interesting.
But it's weird. I mean, like, what? So I can't even imagine. It does, from what everybody's told me too about Dealey Plaza, it does feel. They've all said it has like a surreal, kind of like Alice in Wonderland weird vibe going on. And
yeah. Dallas is sort of strange in general. It has a very strange. There's that interesting something Bellums, the East Bellums or something like that, which is like the art and loft district, which is sort of interesting. But overall, Dallas has a very dark vibe to it. To me, that's what it felt like. And then Dealey Plaza just really feels like they slapped up some kind of place that's a good place to murder the president. Eventually, it sort of felt like
Epstein Island shit.
Yeah, right in the middle of Dallas. Yeah.
Oh man. So if we look back into, so Zapruder is just a random.
Supposedly, right. That's the story. He's just a random clothing industrialist, guy who makes clothes, and he just heard the president was coming, grabbed his trusty camera, got set up, and takes the film that changes the world or something.
Now, wasn't it released, I think, on Geraldo's show? I think it was like...
Oh, right, Geraldo's involved, too. Right, wasn't he sort of... He's also Epstein adjacent, I feel like.
Oh, he's got to be. He's got to be. I mean, put him... It's hilarious. I mean, he makes a phone call yesterday. What is it, to Trump? I remember I heard he...
Oh, yeah.
Called,
he's reassuring us.
He calls Trump to make sure, for us worrying that he's not going to step down gracefully, to tell Trump that, just to reassure the American public that he is actually going to step down at some point, and he's not just gonna. Yeah, that's we had to make sure sick Geraldo on the case, but what? Yeah, I'm thinking, what is 1975, 76? I feel like Zapruder was -4 that year, or 5.
Sounds about right. It's interesting. Then Dan Rather had a whole history with the Kennedy assassination too.
What's his
if you go look up the Dow Tex building, actually you can see the exactly. Oh, that's interesting too. Now you see, you definitely see the 6th story of the book depository building there. So it's exactly 180 degrees. But now towards the upper right, you see the nice pyramid.
You want to share your screen or no?
Let's see here. Yeah. Here, let me...
Go for it.
Let's see here.
So I wonder if Google is time traveling, and the book depository is like a Google asset in the past, perhaps.
I guess it's not. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Weird.
Maybe not.
Well, it's definitely mapping the future that will then determine the then past.
Yeah, it's just a timeline. Yep.
Like retrograde causality, retro.
Yeah, retro causality.
Yeah.
Zapruder, who shot it, had his offices on the 4th floor. Okay, so.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. And let's look up who's Okay, there's Anniston, Alabama. Daltex uranium.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah, this is some weird shit. Oh, there, the floor right below.
Yeah.
Morris Jaffe had help from LBJ's connections in Washington
Why
to
do
get
I know
his
that
alleged.
Name?
Really?
Why do I know that name?
I don't know.
Weird. I know that name. The Evitts. Oh, that's super weird. That Jaffe name. What connection? I wonder.
Oh, Atomic Energy Commission. Let's see here. Climax Molybdenum Company, Jaffe Associates.
That was a great pronunciation there.
Yeah.
Climax, Colorado.
The uranium mine at Climax, Colorado.
Someone needs to look into that fucking town ASAP. No, I basically, essentially, I remember last week showing you were talking to T. Krulos about the Denver airport, and my neighbor, who was an MP, he was actually stationed in Colorado Springs for a while, and he told me that he was stationed, they had him stationed at the Denver airport, and he was actually down in the lower levels, and he had no idea what was going and what was coming. It was just his job to guard, like, not a crossroads, but like a, you know, you can go separate ways kind of situation, like one of those, just one of those points where you're running, you're walking through giant tunnels, and you can go 3 different directions, kind of like a split. And he had to guard there, make sure nobody came and nobody went. I'm like, what did you? And he's conspired. Well, we'll leave it at this. This was in October 1st, 2017. So having this conversation with Alex probably October 3rd, 2017, when we're outside on the stoop going, nope, this is totally effed up. There's something really wrong here with the narrative here. Like, it's totally off. And then I started asking him some questions, and that's how it got to DIA and what's actually down there. But yeah, he was supposed to guard that spot, couldn't do anything. I was like, so you didn't see it? He's like, nope, but there's definitely big ass tunnels, and definitely if they had me down there guarding it, I'd have to assume it's for, I don't know what they're hiding, but
that's a big epicenter too, military wise too.
That's what I'm saying. That's what
they say the new CIA's headquarters is over towards
right. Don't they have it
Denver.
Near not Raven Rock? That's one of the continuity of the COG centers.
Right.
Raven Rock. And then it's a DUM, right? It's a deep underground military base. And then we've got what's the one in Colorado, Jim?
Is that Los Alamos? No. Cheyenne Mountain.
Cheyenne Mountain.
That's it. That's what it is, right?
That's Sirius Command Center. Yeah.
Yeah.
NORAD.
NORAD. Yeah.
It's a misplay.
I used to watch a lot of Stargate.
Oh yeah.
You could never watch it.
That's in Stargate. No, I used to love Stargate. Great show.
Yeah, I forgot about that show.
Who was in Stargate? Was that Scott Bakula?
He was in, I think, one of the Stargates. It was also the guy MacGyver was like
Richard Dean.
Richard Dean Anderson.
Yeah, that is it. Okay.
So, are we looking at something about Daltex?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're looking at the.
So is Daltex? I mean, it's short for Dallas, Texas, but it's a company? The building.
It's a building, yeah, and I think it's the company that owned the building or something like that, and it's right across 180 degrees from where
Zapruder was at.
Zapruder filmed. Did he film it from there?
And also where Oswald was supposed to be, up in that window 6 story right there.
Yeah, we've got a few too many.
I put.
But what would you expect, like in a case like this? I mean,
sorry, go for it.
Oh, I randomly threw Daltex into an anagrammer, and some of the anagrams are taxed, exalt, axle, delta,
Delta.
Delta. Yep.
Axle. Huh?
deal,
Huh.
lated.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what lated means, but anyway, just kind of a random.
You have a gematria calculator too, or no? I wish.
Oh, it's at 501 Elm Street, on the northeast corner of Elm and Houston. Zapruder's dressmaking business leased the 4th and 5th floors of that building. On the issue of who ran the Deltex building and could have provided the snipers with positions, I would say more who organized the entire event. That's what I would say. Zapruder was not the only interesting person connected to the Daltex building. The co-owner of the Daltex building was David Weissblatt, a major financier of the Anti-Defamation League. They're always up to good things. We know,
yeah.
Which has ties to Israeli intelligence, is a key part of the Israeli lobby. The Israeli lobby hated Kennedy for going after its nuclear arms program, and his brother for going after AIPAC itself, actually. The Israeli, it was before AIPAC, it was known as AZEC, I think. The Israeli intelligence agency Mossad had close ties to the CIA. A number of firms in the Dow Tex building used the phone number of one Morty Friedman, who is active in the Zionist community and who was behind the Dallas Uranium and Oil Company, which was possibly helping Israel manufacture weapons. Friedman had other suspicious connections.
Morty.
Zapruder was a Zionist and a high-degree Freemason, as well as a member of two CIA front organizations and the business partner of Jean de Morenschild, the wife of Oswald's best friend in Dallas, who was also CIA. He was a friend of the mother of Lyndon Johnson's secretary, Olga Femer, I never heard of her, who spent many years working at Nardi's in Dallas. And he was, through his CIA front groups, linked to the owner of the book depository, D. Harold Byrd, Oswald's Russian CIA friend, George de Morenschild, the woman who swore in Lyndon Johnson. Okay, so there's more here. But I always think that that's an interesting geography there.
A little too convenient.
Yeah.
What a stage.
Yeah.
That's
mess.
that's just crazy. I mean, the whole thing. Like, I'm just kind of imagining it like the, on Back to the Future, the courtyard, Universal Studios,
Yes.
like town square.
Yes. That's exactly what it felt like to me.
Wow.
And I grew up in Los Angeles, so I'd been to Universal Studios like many times, and this felt faker than that to me.
Yeah, kind
I
of.
mean, you can see there's a little bit of grass space, but it's very like in the middle. It's basically streets. It's not really meant to be hung out there. There's nothing really going on over here. It's just a thoroughfare, really.
Yeah.
That's okay. So that's just a normal thoroughfare. It's super close to the interstate system, though, correct? Like right by 35.
Yeah,
I
I think so.
It's a stage for some bad actors.
And maybe it just feels like a stage when like you're walking there and you're not meant to be walking there, or when they have the president drive through there and everyone's set up. Oh, and by the way, Umbrella Man, the best allegation I've heard of who Umbrella Man is the only confessor we have to September 11th, Michael Harari, the long-term Mossad officer.
Wait a minute.
was
We had to back this up.
He
line a little
confessed to 9/11, apparently.
bit. Who did?
Michael Harari did.
Harari.
Finally,
Yeah. Dead now.
closure. We have closure.
We don't have him on video, but
We have him confessing that Mossad is responsible for this.
here's the allegation is that there's an ex-Soviet nuclear intelligence officer named Dmitry Kolosov who has also said many things about September 11th too, but he was in Thailand, he said, that during that time of September 11th, and actually working for Harari in Southeast Asia. And also he attributes a lot, like things like the Bali bombing, to Mike Harari, and then Mike Harari's patsies as the ones who are being blamed. But he says that the morning after September 11th, that Harari was celebratory and basically confessed to it. So it's hearsay, but it's the only time I've ever heard anyone say that someone confessed directly to them that they helped do 9/11. And in this case, the figure fits in.
Yeah, dude, a little bit too.
Maybe too much, yeah.
Yeah, almost like it's like, oh, this, nope, put the ball in the round hole.
But what's interesting is I'd never considered Harari before this, actually, even though he's like the classic Mossad officer. He was the guy. He ran Israeli intelligence in the Western Hemisphere, basically. All the time that we know of George H.W. Bush organizing the CIA's involvement in drug running throughout the Western Hemisphere, Harari was doing the same thing for the Israelis, and we barely hear anything about it.
Holy shit!
So was he born one of the mole kids, or was he just like an honorary mole kid?
Harari?
Yeah, because I thought that the mole kids did 9/11.
Oh, I don't even. Who are the underground? The kids who live
Yeah,
underground?
they call out of the dumbs. Yeah, that's where all the human trafficking and that's
The mole kids.
The mole kids did 9/11.
Did
I still
9/11.
have not yet seen that on a shirt,
Well,
so it's not true.
we might have to make weaving spider shirts.
Yeah.
There you go.
But only coffee spiders.
Caffeinated, the caffeinated
Yeah.
spider. Oh, geez. I gotta get a SP 303 like a doctor sample and just prime that out. It's coming. So when we go, I guess what other? Who
Okay, I'll
else?
stop sharing this screen here
That's all good.
for now. Or should I keep? I just keep it.
James
up
P. Hubble. No, this is weird. Hubble, is that Hubble telescope?
I'm
Oh,
sure.
Where is it? What do you see?
It's the second paragraph. Designed by architects.
Oh, James P.
Hubble.
Hubble.
No, I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Maybe not. And Herbert Miller. It could be.
The Dallas National Bank building. Herbert Miller Green.
No, it's fascinating to just pour over what because I've never looked at it. I've never looked at this Wikipedia page in my life, so it's kind of weird to look at.
Wow, he's got some beautiful his architecture. James P. Hubble. That's
Does he?
that's worth a look. Yeah.
Yeah, on some.
Oh, look, Garrison himself said in Playboy in September 1967 that the building was in all probability as being one of 4 locations
I was just
in
about
which
to ask,
snipers fired it.
was this a sniper? I was gonna say this feels like a sniper's nest, another location for a pretty good nest because you got everybody shutting the f up about it, and I'm assuming they probably when they went on to do some of the investigation, they looked into it, but this wasn't one of the. You don't hear the name of this building. You do from researchers, but you don't hear it as much as the obvious book.
Was this building mentioned in Oliver Stone and Arnon Milchan's film? I'm not sure. I sort of doubt it.
Yeah, it does Jim Mars mention it? I'm trying to think.
I don't know.
I don't have Crossfire. I loaned that to a buddy, so I don't even think I have any Jim Mars books here. And I own like 4 of them.
Maybe it's in the film. I'm not sure. Because if Proudy's talking about it. Proudy was a key key input on JFK, the film, I think. But I think what's his name? Mars was the main one. It was based on his book, right?
Yeah, Crossfire.
Is it James
And
T. Hubble or James P. Hubble?
Never
mind.
James P. Hubble.
Peter.
Okay, there's a James T. Hubble that's active right now in architecture and art.
Weird. I wonder that's probably his kid.
Probably his kid.
But going back, what is it saying about the conspiracy theories regarding the building? Well, that makes sense. All right, so that's one that shots possibly fired from there, a sniper's nest in the building.
In September 1966, Triumph's Lawrence R. Brown published an article stating that the bullet trajectories were traced back to a second-floor window
There you go.
in the Daltex building. So it's all possible that the whole back into the left, back into that the whole Zapruder film scenario was actually meant to just distract from where the actual kill shots came from. It might be as simple as that.
Yeah.
And the driver doing it scenario, that might all just be distraction.
Have you heard about the one where there was the president's wife was dressed in drag, like she was a Secret Service guy dressed in drag that day, and he shot
I didn't hear
the
that.
president?
I heard that she did just as herself.
As herself?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie.
Well, I will say this. Remember, all right, just going back to looking at the Life magazine, how it's so blatant that there's, the first shot, and you're looking at that photo, and the fucking street sign is just right all up in the fucking perfectly placed to block the first, anything coming from the first shot. So you get nothing there. I can't.
Yeah.
I just can't. I don't buy it, and it's too much. Okay, this is fascinating.
It was definitely storyboarded beforehand.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It's 100%, dude. So we're looking right now at the Warren Commission Exhibit 876, showing the location of the Dow Tex building. We have numbers 1 through 11, itemizing each of these buildings.
I see. It's actually Oh, okay. So to me, it looks like it's actually right next to
Oh, it's ideal.
the book depository building.
It's ideal. It's got to think about that in the back and to the left, dude. I mean,
Oh.
looking at, for people audio only, we're looking at the Dealey Plaza, and we have the Dow Tech's building, which we're talking about right now, right perfectly in the path of Elm, right? Yeah, Elm. It's
Yeah.
right there. It's
Yeah.
right there.
So I was wrong. It's not directly across from it. It's right next to
It's
it.
right, literally next to it, and it's on Elm. This feels like that's the spot, and it's close enough, far enough back to where it's not
Yeah.
gonna. It's
It'll
like,
sound like it came from the same place. It'll basically just a few degrees off, so it'll sort of look like it came from the same place.
right. So
All
when
right,
you
that makes sense.
they go measuring trajectories and get all CSI on everything. Remember, it's 1963, and there's no film. There's one film of it essentially. I'm sure there's another one. I can't remember the guy's name. He's got a funny last name.
Whoa! Look
Or
at the notice on the left-hand side there, underneath of the Texas School Book Depository, which is labeled number 1.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a 9 and 11 right next to each other.
It is. Pergolas,
Totally.
Yep.
Pergolas, whatever that is. I don't know.
Pergolas is a park. The park,
Oh, okay.
maybe.
It's like an arboretum.
Pergolas. Pergolas.
The pergolas.
Pergolas.
At the park. That's the grassy knoll.
That's where the
I think-
Zapruder was
Isn't it?
at.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
the grassy knoll.
Yeah. Then so the fence would be right there, up and sort of surrounding the pergolas, probably, or something
Okay.
like that.
And 9/11 is
Yeah.
the 11 is a triple underpass.
Yeah.
Triple underpass.
Triple underpass. Wonder when this little key.
1963, probably.
This was released in 63. It feels like it.
Is it in your book?
No.
Oh, this.
Because the book was, I guess the book or the life issue was actually, I'm guessing probably a week after it was released. I didn't necessarily find much on, because that was what I was looking it up for. I'll actually look it up again.
Yeah, it was pretty propaganda-y magazine, that their Life Life magazine.
The life and times of Lyndon B. Johnson, a little bit
Oh yeah.
a little bit too hard.
Okay, I see. So this is the Daltex building that we're looking directly at
The
in the
depository
picture here.
to the left, correct?
The depository is directly to the left, and then the pyramid sits
Oh
right
yeah.
on top of it.
All too ominously.
Whoa!
I don't know if that was built after or what,
Click
but
on that.
I wonder if it's the same orientation of the pyramids. It looks like it.
oh, that's 2003. This could be a later. That's basically the marking of their territory, I think.
Yeah.
Straight up.
after the fact, yeah.
What's
Like
the?
looming.
It's as
lording-
above, so below. With the two pyramids, you know the.
They tagged it up. They've like,
They did.
yo, homie, you got nailed right here, bro. They just tagged it up.
Yeah, it's it's Osiris's prick.
Oh boy, this is a creepy spot though.
It is.
I mean, maybe if it hadn't happened there, maybe it wouldn't feel so creepy.
Guys, it came out January 1st, New Year's Day, 1963.
Huh.
I'm not even going to do number running on this one, but wow. So, I wonder what building that is lording.
This one?
Italy. Yeah.
Yeah. Find out who
Yeah,
built
let's
that,
see.
who owns that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so downtown Dallas skyline.
Okay, let's look at the.
So
it's right there, the West End Historic District.
and that's from the southwest, that photo. So there you go.
So it's over here somewhere, probably, huh?
Well, wasn't that last photo shot? It says from view from the southwest.
Yeah. So it was from here up
So-
to here, and so like here's the
So
depository.
we're looking, we're in that direct path.
So it's
there.
somewhere over here, probably, huh?
Okay, so let me see here.
was that guy's name again? What else was he involved in? Oh, I just wanted to complete the loop on the 9/11 paymaster also being involved with. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, Feinberg, also one of 3 arbitrators who determined the fair market value of the Zapruder film of the Kennedy assassination, and was one of 2 arbitrators who determined the allocation of legal fees in the Holocaust slave labor litigation. He is a former lecturer in law at a number of U.S. law schools. Feinberg was the chairman of the board of directors for the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation. Oh, isn't that sweet, too?
He's a
Oh, look. He worked for 33 months entirely pro bono.
Oh my God! For September, yeah. Everybody, we drop all these mics as hard as we can and run away
Confirmed.
from the building. Because this is the most egregious shit I've ever read in my life. That's September 11th.
Yeah.
Tagging up Wikipedia. They're doing it.
Okay, yeah, this is Wikipedia, guys. Okay, Jeremy, do you want to read this line? This is straight up verbatim out of Wikipedia.
Which one? The September 11th.
Yeah, read that okay, again in its whole. We're looking up.
Let me highlight this right here.
Oh my God, dude, this is egregious.
So first, he did help determine the fair market value of the Zapruder film of the Kennedy assassination.
This is J.D. Feinberg, right?
Kenneth Feinberg.
Kenneth Feinberg.
Yeah, and then September 11th Victim Compensation Fund, appointed by Attorney General John Ashcroft to be special master of the fund. Feinberg worked for 33 months entirely pro bono. That sort of sounds like the Israeli intelligence working pro bono on protecting all of our hospital data right now. That's so
there
sweet.
You go. Kind of funny.
Oh, that's
right?
so nice. So nice of them. Thanks, guys.
They're like criminal defense lawyers. They're just like helping the downtrodden. Really sweet. Okay. He administered this program that basically this was the epicenter of the 9/11 cover-up because they didn't want any of the family members having standing to take it into a court where there could be discovery and witnesses and expert testimony and all of that. Remember how crazy it went when they tried to even put the patsy of 9/11, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, on trial in the Article 3 civilian court in Manhattan during the Obama administration, and all the 9/11 perp adjacent people went crazy. They went totally crazy against it and shut it down. So, and then the judge who oversaw all this stuff was what's his name again? Oh, I forgot his name. What was the name?
Elite. No. Oh, what's his name? Wasn't it O.J. Simpson's judge? Ito?
No. I'm thinking about the federal judge who all of the 9/11 trials. We looked him up before. I can't. Oh, here. There it is. Hellerstein. Alvin Hellerstein. Here we go. Look at and watch this. Alvin Hellerstein, son, ICTS. Okay, so here's well, let's first see this. Okay, Alvin Kenneth Hellerstein is a senior United States District Judge of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York and has presided over several high-profile cases. Hellerstein was born in New York City, New York, to Rose and Max Hellerstein and is an Orthodox Jew. He attended the Bronx High School of Science, graduating in 1950, Columbia College, Columbia Law School, JAG Corps, U.S. Army, president and chairman of the Board of Jewish Education. I'm not sure what that organization's about. Notable cases, World Trade Center. In 2003, Hellerstein agreed to hear a consolidated master case against 3 airlines. ICTS International. It says Deutschland, right? Okay, so let's look at that. ICTS Deutschland, right? ICTS International is a Dutch firm that develops products and provides consulting and personnel services in the field of aviation and general security. It was established in 1982 by former members of the Shin Bet, Israel's internal security agency, and the El Al airline security agents. Okay. And Pinkerton's airport security firms, the World Trade Center owners, and Boeing company, the aircraft manufacturer.
Definitely the Pinkertons.
Same Pinkerton.
What is going on?
That's the same Pinkerton.
It's the same. I know it is. It's the same.
That's crazy.
Security apparatus or whatever the hell.
Keep it in the family.
The same one that didn't the Rockefellers use Pinkerton?
Oh yeah, Pinkertons.
It used to be like the Secret Service, sort of back like
they were the security apparatus for anybody that was
100, 200 years ago.
Yep, they're And you know, we don't. It's funny we don't.
Like it was a private security.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like Illuminati.
Like the Blackwater of their age, but domestic, like domestic policing.
Yep, that would make sense.
Okay, so here on January 12th, 2006, Hellerstein dismissed the last remaining property damage claim against New York City while leaving pending several other suits against other parties, among them the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. According to Reuters, 6 insurers sought repayment from the city for expenses arising from the collapse
of Building 7?
a 47-story office building near the Twin Towers.
It
won't even say Building 7.
It's fucking Building 7, and they won't even say it.
47 stories? That's Building 7, which adds up to 11. That's interesting.
There you go. Yeah, I was about to say, where's the calculator?
Yeah. Hellerstein ruled New York had sovereign immunity. All right. And so basically you have Kenneth Feinberg paying off the family so as few cases go in front of Judge Hellerstein as possible. And he rules that the New York City has sovereign immunity. Okay. Now here, Judge Hellerstein's unethical connection to key defendants. We just read on his Wikipedia page that he oversaw the ICTS case. And now here is an article from Christopher Bolin. 9/11 judge is connected to Rothschild-funded Mossad culprit ICTS. Hellerstein, it is very crass, and it probably will come back to be critical of me, but there is an expression that is sometimes very useful. Money is the universal lubricant.
Oh.
It makes it easier to go on with one's life.
Oh my God, what a sick fuck.
Look at this dude. This dude looks like a gangster to me. I'm sorry. I know he's an honorable federal judge. I know he oversaw this important case. I'm sure it was all just, and he, this bastard judicial system is so corrupt. 9/11 widow Ellen Mariani. I'd probably go with her, actually. He's the judge who handles all 9/11 in litigation. His son is an Israeli lawyer who emigrated to Israel in 2001 and whose law firm works for and with the Rothschild-funded Mossad company responsible for the 9/11 terror attacks. That's a powerful assertion, Bolin.
Yeah, it is.
This presents a clear case of criminal conflict of interest and explains why Hellerstein has protected the Israeli culprits of the false flag terrorism of 9/11 by preventing a trial and blocking any legal discovery of what really happened. Oh, you know who else was involved? Wasn't it Ari what's his name? What's the guy's name? The former press secretary for Bush?
Ari Fleischer.
Yeah, Ari Fleischer, dude.
Wait, where is he? He's connected?
I don't know. I think he's also connected to Ari Fleischer's brother, ICTS, or what was that? That's maybe not be true. No, it's not. It's not the same connection.
Okay.
I think Ari Fleischer's brother is involved. Well, I forget what it was. This is quite a mess, dude. Look at this. Ari Fleischer, 9/11, Israel's point man in the White House.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, there he is with the Chabadniks. I mean, this is so interesting because, like, the United States, America was like actually the domain of like the Jewish reformists and Jewish conservatives.
So wasn't Ari?
What do you say? There he is. What the fuck? What? Come on, Ari.
He's got the still of him. Hook 'em horns. That's what it means. It just means.
Oh, sorry, guys.
There's Chabad beliefs there.
Wasn't Ari Fleischer's brother?
Yeah, here's his brother,
Michael Fleischer. He looks, dude.
I trust him with. Sure, he would be a great babysitter.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. He doesn't have that. Ugh.
Ari Fleischer's older brother, Michael Paul Fleischer, has been president of the Israeli-owned Bogan Communication International Incorporated of Ramsey, New Jersey, since 1997.
What do we know about this place?
Bogan's product line includes sound processing equipment through its European operations, speech design GmbH, a German company with subsidiaries in Switzerland and Israel. It develops, manufactures, and distributes voicemail systems, as well as unified messaging digital voice processing systems. In 1996, a manufacturing subsidiary Speech Design Israel Limited began production of some of Speech Design's product line in Israel. Oh, look! Oh, that's so sweet. Look at those voicemails.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure Israeli intelligence has nothing to do, no access.
No. Oh, dude, that would totally. This is when you had to use these phones, the bells, Ma Bell.
Oh, look, it's designed and developed in the USA.
Of course. Yeah, of course it is. Oh my God.
It's sort of like Breitbart.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, they're American. They're American.
It's conceived in Israel, made in the USA.
Oh, dude. Insane.
Or we make it easier to communicate.
When did you do that in LA We Are Changed? What did you know? Do you know Luke then? Or something, or what?
We ended up meeting Luke in 2000. I think it was 2007 when we started We Are Change LA, and we went to New York that year. And I was against. I thought we should just start our own separate thing, because what we were doing was there was an LA 9/11 Truth group, but it wasn't very activist oriented. It wasn't very street oriented, and we wanted to do like a think act tank where we would sort of take strategic action for like. And we developed some interesting stuff. Like we developed like a bannering above freeways with really big blue clear banners about what to search for and stuff like that. And so the other co-founders wanted to be associated with We Are Change and InfoWars and all of that, and I didn't want to. I thought we should just do our own thing, but I compromised, and so we just called it We Are Change LA.
So real quick, why don't you where did you get started? Like, where do you get started in all this? Where do you, like, how do you fit into the equation that is, like, how did you start looking into, awful acts? And, I mean, just basically what sparked your, like, where are you in college? Like, give us...
That's sort of when I started getting interested in things. Like,
okay.
I went to college in Williams College in Western Massachusetts. It was going to be 96 to 2000, but then I took a year off after my sophomore year, so 97 to 98-ish, and went back home to LA, and I started working with a peace lobby organization out of Sane Freeze. It was known as Peace Action at that time. And that's sort of when I got started researching about foreign policy and the military-industrial complex and stuff like that, and then went back to college and finished and did more like teaching and DJing and music production with friends and up in the Northeast area, and then eventually moved back to LA and went to work again for the Peace Action group in LA, and then began studying a lot more about like deeper truth and deep politics stuff, and started seeing how it was connected and started talking to people within the organization. And when I got to like 9/11 and then Israeli involvement in the war policy post 9/11, it got very uncomfortable. And then they shut down our LA Canvas office at that point. And it was around that time that I was really getting into studying 9/11. Because when I lived back in the Northeast, we like the year after I graduated from college, lived with a friend in like a small little really beautiful house in like southern Vermont, and had a job teaching music to like a K through 8 school, all contained. Didn't even have internet for most of that year, and so didn't really know that there was anybody. And this is right, 9/11 happens the September after I graduate from college, and all I heard was like every so often I could hear like some Democracy Now! On some public, community station from Bennington, Vermont or something like that, and heard Amy Goodman and Noam Chomsky and stuff like that. But I had no clue that there was even people that were like questioning what had happened on 9/11. I knew it was shady. There was some, it felt weird the day of, because I was actually with my family down in Southern California the morning of, and I remember that Steve Pichenik's writing partner, Tom Clancy, was on television the morning of, and I was like, what? I thought this dude was a fiction writer. What he's analyzing what for us here now? But I never really looked at it. And then like somewhere in 2004, I remember like we were doing hip hop shows in the Pioneer Valley area and go to shows, do stuff. And I remember getting a flyer outside of a hip hop show in Northampton, Massachusetts, and it was like a deception dollar and some other stuff, and it led me in the direction of like Michael Rupert investigations, and that never quite got me all the way there because it didn't take me to the epicenter of ground zero, and so it was still sort of in the realm of they knew things, they might have let it happen and all of that. And so it wasn't until I moved back to LA with my friend Joe, and that's actually when we went through Dallas, was when we were moving from East Coast back to LA, where in LA I heard on the radio like lectures by like David Ray Griffin, and they would play snippets of Loose Change, and then I just was off and running and doing reading and stuff like that, and just continued ever since on that, really.
Right. So I was gonna say, so you were running a canvas office in LA then for the LA We Are Change?
Peace Action.
Okay, Peace Action. Sorry.
Yeah.
Dude, well, as long as it wasn't the Pergs, right?
No, it wasn't the Pergs. It was sort of adjacent.
Yeah, that's what I did when I moved to Austin.
Yeah.
I was canvassing for the Pergs, Tex Perg.
But
But no,
what's his name? Nader started those, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like up there with Sierra Club, but Sierra Club, I'm looking into them. I was like, wait a minute, this whole network is just wrought with gross shit. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's about the time when I started understanding like the hangouts and the cover and the left deception and all of that. And there I was, there was We Are Change, and a lot of 9/11 truth was at that time began to be severely, sponsored or umbrellaed under like InfoWars,
Right.
and sort of like a more right wing orientation. But it was still like you were still
was
hearing
still-
on the left, like Pacifica Radio, little bits here and there.
Right, and I remember that. That was a weird time because it was like, because I come from the left side of it too with Noam. I remember I had like 4 Noam Chomsky books when 9/11 happened. I remember like I was into, it's just in a weird stage, but I remember being like, oh, this just doesn't feel right, kind of thing, There's just too many coincidences here. But then when he found the passport, I'll never forget. I remember that going through my mind, going, this is wrong. No, this is fake. Like, all of this is bullshit. Not all of it, but, because you're just, like, sucking it up and kind of still watching shit burn. It's like, I can't think like that right now, but it's kind of like, no. I remember getting that chill and just being like, this is they know way more. But it's wild. It's wild to think about. So are you teaching, like, are you still teaching right now? What are you doing you teaching music?
No, I don't teach anymore. I
Okay.
mainly just do radio, working on developing radio.
Okay, awesome.
What kind of like real old radio, like transmitting and stuff?
No, just like programs, like doing the Antedote, and then we have a program on community radio in Kansas City
Nice.
called Understanding Israel Palestine.
So
And
what
where
did
I
what did
sort of supply the deep politics analysis.
Where
you're an expert.
where would I find
No.
where would I find that?
It's on kkfi.org, called Understanding Israel Palestine.
So
And we're going to start posting like all of our past shows. We've done it for like a year there for every month, and now we're doing it every week. We sort of rotate as producers.
So how did you fall into the category of like what you're, with Israeli, Palestinian, what lit your fire for this? Like what, besides 9/11, besides all, is there anything you can really think of or pinpoint that kind of lit a fire underneath you?
Just investigating 9/11 and the wars and all of that. And I was raised Jewish in Los Angeles, and had my bar mitzvah at the same temple as what's her name, Mae Brussel did, where her father was the rabbi there. It was her old school temple there, and I remember my bar mitzvah was right around the same time as like the Gulf War. And I remember one of my friends that I played soccer with at the time, he really understood the injustice of the Gulf War and what was going on. and all that time, and I didn't really understand it at that time when I was 13. And later on, I began to connect the dots in relationship to U.S. foreign policy post 9/11, especially in terms of Iraq War and all of that kind of stuff. And so then just discovering more and more about that, then began to head in the direction of Israel intensely. And I think being as a Jewish American, it was doubly difficult to maybe psychologically or emotionally to deal with the American aspect, the sort of quote unquote inside job aspect of 9/11, and then also to begin to put together the pieces that even that was very likely sort of a limited hangout for the fixed point reference, which was very much more likely in Israel. And then sort of begin to look more into the actual geopolitics on the ground there, and Palestine and the background of Israel and Israel's history and all of that. And it's even to this day, that's why like our show in Kansas City is split amongst three of us. Two women that I met in a local group over there called Citizens for Justice in the Middle East. And one of them actually focuses a lot more on like the direct Palestinian perspective and talks to Palestinian activists on the ground, and like doctors from a COVID perspective, or people who know what's going on in Gaza, but also Palestinian academics and activists here in the United States. And then our other co-host, she really deals with it from like a international perspective, international law, people from non-governmental organizations talking about the law in relationship to Israel-Palestine. And then I deal with the sort of hardcore geopolitics of the Israel lobby, Israeli espionage, the relationship of I interviewed the author Seth Abramson, who's written some of the most thorough sort of mainstream reporting. It's sort of synergistic journalism of like all the mainstream news about 2016 and the Trump collusion background. And so I interviewed him specifically about a second book, which is called Proof of Conspiracy, that delves into the Middle Eastern component of the 2016 election operation, which centers around people like Netanyahu, George Nader, who is at the epicenter between the UAE and Netanyahu and Putin, and then back to the United States, and is also now an accused or convicted pedophile, I believe. And so I sort of cover that kind of stuff for that show. And so at first I wanted to cover more of like the Palestinian perspective, but then I also realized that my strength is to be able to speak from an actual American and also a Jewish American perspective, and help other Americans specifically understand that this is not just about over there per se. And that's usually the way I've seen like the sort of left side be totally controlled by basically that all the charities and non-governmental organizations are all focus the liberals to the left on those poor people over there, yeah, and away from the actual lobbies and powers over here that maintain the power structure, and especially in relationship to something like 9/11 and the wars in Israel. That is so obvious. And so as a American and as a Jewish American, I feel like it's in my wheelhouse and also my responsibility to deal with the American component of this Jewish state power thing.
For sure.
So I have a question for you. I don't mean to sidebar too much, but was it a big deal, the coin with Trump on it, linking him to Saul?
Or to the wasn't it
Saul?
To Cyrus?
Cyrus, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't in my sphere, but I imagine it probably was in like some of the sort of orthodox spheres, is Israeli centric. I don't know. I don't know how the cultural yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot made of it. Like if you look at the numbers in terms of voting for Trump in the United States, obviously like the majority of Jews voted against Trump, but the vast majority of Orthodox Jews voted for him.
Yeah. That seems to be the case.
And I think that's largely because of the power of like Chabad, and that a lot of ultra orthodox, you hear about the small groups of ultra orthodox who are like anti-Zionists per se, but they don't have a lot of political sway and power. And I guess the thing is, like, if you go to Russia, Chabad is like 98% of the Jewish community life there. So they are massively in power there, and they're at the right hand of Putin too, in terms of Berel Lazar, Putin's rabbi. And so that's a lot of the research also that I've been working on, is seeing this multipolar shift in dynamics where Israel becomes the hinge point. It's almost like where, Rothschild City of London, they helped create Israel, and then Israel becomes this hinge point between the West and towards the East, and the Belt Road initiative, and China and Israel, and Russia and Israel, and still the U.S. and Israel, and England and Israel, and all of that, and sort of this, and the technology, and the new Apple chip, it looks like it was also designed in Israel.
Yeah,
So at some point, I thought didn't we design the internet here in this country? Didn't
Right.
we? We helped design the personal computer, but we can't design our chips. We have to have a country the size of New Jersey design our chips for us.
Is that what the M1 chip is coming from there?
That's
now?
what it looks like. Yeah.
Wow. Fuck you, Intel.
It's also there's an Israeli designer. It's not Intel anymore.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, but Intel was designed there too.
Oh, of course it was. Of course it was.
So that's what I as an American, we need to reincorporate our political power. We need to reintegrate, maybe would be the way to say it, our technical power, our industrial power. We still have it here. We've just been destabilized, and there's a sucking sound, a transfer sound going on here, and we need to reestablish ourselves.
Do you get harassed? I'm sure you do, for talking shit on Zionism when people don't even fucking understand any of it. Essentially, a lot of people don't. They just you get the knee-jerk reaction. Idiots, not idiots, but I guess. And then you say anything in a negative connotation, you're an anti-Semite. Yeah. It's been weaponized. Clearly.
It can happen like that. I've seen. It depends on what kind of. If you're on the internet, like if you're often like not on sort of like YouTube channels or something like that, I'm not receiving like tons of stuff like that. But like where Greg and I, soon after Greg and I met, we went to this event at the Kansas City Public Library that was sponsored by the Kansas City Public Library, the Truman Library Institute, and the Jewish Community Foundation of Kansas City, and they brought the former diplomat to Israel, Dennis Ross, there, who's a part of this AIPAC offshoot, the WINEP, Washington Institute for Near East Policy, which is where this infamous clip of this guy Patrick Clausen in 2012, where he's saying, how are we gonna get to, we're in the game, people, how are we gonna get to an American president to war with Iran? And he architects about false flags or covert operations or deceptions, and Dennis Ross is sitting right next to him on that panel. And so Ross gives this lecture, and then they open it up for questions, and I ask a question about a series of facts. One of them that I just discovered in relationship to that event was that the Stern Gang, which is also known as Lehi, which was like the most sort of militant extremist Zionist terrorist group, and they would flip very intensely in terms of their political affiliations. They would work with Stalinist Russia, and then they would also work with Hitler's Germany, and they were, they were sort of like, Stalinist fascist types, and definitely down with terrorism, and involved with like the Irgun, who helped blow up the King David Hotel, where there was lots of British people, including Jewish Brits. So obviously it was like a Jew-on-Jew violence of some sort to found the state of Israel. But I brought up this fact that group had sent a letter bomb to President Truman the year before he recognized Israel, and it was depicted in his daughter's Margaret's book. And then I brought up the King David Hotel bombing, and then I made an assertion about September 11th and Zionist elements there, and so then we were having a back and forth, and then out of nowhere I get grabbed by the security chief of the quote-unquote Jewish community of Kansas City. It's sort of like a trademark. It's a corporation of different groups, and they hired, there was a shooting by this very shady character. Before the shooting, he was shady too. Sort of Ku Klux Klan associated guy, but who was on the radar of like the Southern Poverty Law Center and did a shooting outside of a Jewish community center in Kansas City in 2014. And then so soon thereafter, they hired a Jewish community security officer for the entire area for all of their facilities. And so then this guy met this Kansas City police detective at the Fusion Center. They were both working at the Department of Homeland Security Fusion Center in Kansas City. And then 6 months before this event, they both went on this finance trip to Israel to visit the sites, to visit the Knesset, to train, to see the wall, to sort of see where the terrorists, Palestinian terrorists, lived on the other side of the walls, the way that the detective said it. And then 6 months later, they both were involved in grabbing and then having me arrested at this event while I was at the microphone using civil speech. And then I was under charges for more than a year alongside the Kansas City Public Library employee who helped organize the event and allowed the security to come in the first place. And so I'm still involved in a civil suit on the other side, a pro se, with my wife's help. We eventually got them to drop the charges. The librarian won his case. They escalated the charges against him, and then he was found not guilty. And then we both filed suit against different parties. And then mine got thrown out against the detective. And so now I'm working to appeal it in the 8th Circuit, which is everywhere from Arkansas up through like the Dakotas, and based on real recent Supreme Court law around. And I've learned a lot about like the way, because the way that you, like an individual can seek like reparations and hold people accountable is under the Ku Klux Klan Act. Really, that's where it came from, was in the wake of the Civil War, and where they were trying to prevent the conjunction of police forces and Ku Klux Klan. And I've done research too about the Ku Klux Klan does come out of some of the forces.
Yeah, B'nai B'rith, dude.
B'nai B'rith, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And sort of aspects of Confederate intelligence, which B'nai B'rith was also involved with, and all of that kind of stuff, and the Knights of the Golden Circle and all of that. So it's very interesting, like that's the American law, where the American people are trying to, cement and hold our God-given rights, is based on this law that was meant to keep the Ku Klux Klan, aka B'nai B'rith, in check.
Right.
That's the most sort of severe blowback I've had from that. And the detective who arrested me, he falsely charged me with trespassing when it's on my own video that I offered to leave multiple times and then did leave once they stopped grabbing me. And then he tagged me with a hate crime, an anti-Jewish hate crime code on my trespassing charge that his supervisors told him to take off, and he refused to take it off. And they believe, his supervisors think it's still on my arrest record to this day, basically, and being shared databases, basically. Oh, and one last thing is when that finally hit the press, and then it spread to like the Jewish and Israeli press. There was a comment on one of the Israeli press stories of a Jewish guy who said that I should be stoned, actually, that I got off easy and that I should have been stoned for what I said.
Wow.
How dare you question anything?
And Facebook allowed it just to sort of sit there, so, on that story.
Wow. That sucks.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Disgusting, dude.
Yeah.
What year was this?
That was 2016 that I was arrested and then charged until 2017 summer. And then been in sort of civil suit basically a year after that ever since.
And where were you arrested?
At the Kansas City Public Library. Which was very strange that it was the Plaza branch, and it's in the same building as this legal firm that we then found out in, when was that? Was that 2019 when the Shadow Lords, or what were they called, that group that had all the 9/11 documents and started releasing it the first of the year? I think that was last year, beginning of 2019.
Yeah, it was anonymous, wasn't it?
No, it was the Shadow Lords.
Shadow Lords.
Yeah, something like that.
Weird, but I remember them threatening and you give us this amount. Wasn't it Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was escalating levels for this level of documents
to get
or
this
something.
information. I remember that now. I remember that pretty. Because that was on Twitter. I remember them posting that, and yeah, but nobody dove in because it just went away.
Yeah, it just sort of went away. What was it?
Go away?
And so it turned out that one of the major loads that they had was the civil suits for probably some of the airlines that we just read about how federal judge Hellerstein was seeing all of these cases, that the same firm was actually in that same building there where the Kansas City Public Library Plaza branch is. It was sort of a strange coincidence many years later.
It all, of course it connects. Of course it does. That's wild, dude.
The guy was off duty, so it's interesting because there's a lot of like overlapping of stuff about private and public, and how in off duty is a thing. Like there was an off duty police officer who shot a Kansas City fireman on his wedding night in Kansas City. He was working for a hotel, and so that has a background to me of like, oh, he's working in terms of a private property holder, so he's maybe overly jumpy and overly in service of a private property owner, and not in terms of public safety. And so this was a much more reduced in terms of physical violence. I didn't suffer much physical violence. I just got, a bruise on my upper arm. But the librarian got his knee all messed up and had to have surgery and stuff. And
they took him out like that. I mean,
the lead detective here is little.
He's still in power. He's still in power too.
No, I've basically, my wife and I have outlasted everybody here. Basically, nice. The governor has come and gone. We're on our third governor in the midst of this case. The police chief has come and gone. That police detective was let go at the end of 2018. Something. The head of the security for the Jewish community has been since let go. And since they've actually acquired a Secret Service guy, and actually met him, and he's much more with it. Secret Service, they know how to deal with like people in sort of First Amendment kind of deals,
So much.
As long as you don't get in a car with them, I guess you're cool.
Right.
I guess maybe the Trump COVID ride with the Secret Service was to get karma for the Kennedy.
Yeah, collect that up. Yep.
Collective punishment. It wasn't fair, but.
So since we are in such a weird spot right now, we're in some weird limbo state, but we know, I think I'll assume that all of us are on the same page with like, well, there's whatever the hell's going on right now, behind the scenes type shit. But I mean, we can always speculate, and that's always fun. So where do you think this is going? I guess to close out the evening, I guess, like where do you see what are you seeing from this, Jeremy? I'm curious to know, like, what's fitting into what in your brain, if anything at all, or where do you see this going? Do you think it's going to be the way it is? Do you think with Biden setting up that office and that whole bullshit, backdrop with office of the president-elect, which is bullshit because technically he's not even the president-elect until the Electoral College comes in and deems him the president-elect, correct? I mean, if we go by...
That's not the norm. The norm is that when it's sort of seen that he's likely to be the winner, they would use the civic custom. It's not law, but the civic custom is for it to be passed on, or at least some transition to begin preemptively or something.
And what I guess I heard a few things earlier this afternoon about them. The team is complaining that they're not getting, the transition team is actually freaking out because they're not getting classified briefings. They're bugging out. I mean, it's just...
That's mainly what I'm worried about, is that's why I mentioned a Chertoff,
Right, if they get that, that rang that like little bell in my brain, like, well, pay attention to whatever they're saying in the background here on this bullshit. And it ran through my mind like, shit, if they got that kind of gives you that gives you the keys to the whole kingdom, kind of. But then you have these factions obviously working within the current administration to undermine the current administration. There has to be. And then we've got the career bureaucrats obviously just being grimy as usual. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. And I felt like last week at this time, after, they crowned Biden and all that nonsense, I felt like, okay, this is gonna be a weird, weird couple next few days, kind of, and then hopefully something will kind of be put in place to where we'll have a little bit of clarity here. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It seems like he's gonna drag it out. I don't know, Trump. I don't know though. I don't know. I really, this is a weird ass, because I find it's like we're all asking each other, like, all right, guys, how do we approach this? You know what I mean? Like, I don't expect NPCs to really, do much thinking here on this one. It's kind of like, okay, accept it for what it is and just move on. Try and move on with your life, or whatever you have left of your life after COVID. But I feel like there's enough people out there that do care enough, that are now out of work per se, if you want to go there, that have a lot of extra free time on their hands to research, to do, to look into some of these things. Which I don't know if our government should worry about something like that, but you'd think that they would on a certain level. But then also, they put out so much nonsense to keep the play going, so to speak, I guess. So I don't know. It's just weird. It's kind of like we're looking to each other for any little inkling one of us might not pick up, the other might pick up. I don't know. I really don't know what to make of this whole thing. I don't. And I've been asked by numerous people, and I don't know. I don't see any outright anything. But I mean, like I said, that one little thing rang my
It's kind of the idea, I think, right now, is that we don't see where it's gonna go. Mass confusion, I think, is part of the plan. I mean, I think I heard this story when Bill Clinton left the White House and George W. Bush was moving into the White House. The Clinton White House staff, they stole all the W's off of all the keyboards on all the computers. It was like a prank. And I remember thinking that was so awesome and like hilarious and stupid and cool when that happened.
That is pretty great.
It is. It's pretty awesome. I mean, if it's a true story, I mean they're gonna have to buy new, like, damn, they charge the taxpayers all that money they had to buy new.
At least it wasn't a hospital having to pay for that then, right?
Exactly. Like that kind of hijinks was kind of fun, kind of cool. But now there's like, like I'm gonna fight you on it, and then it's just,
yeah. I mean, that was kind of put into the narrative, like the pre-programmed kind of whatever.
Absolutely.
Like, I think we all knew this, and we all accepted that. No,
absolutely,
he's right, and not play by any fucking schoolyard rules, and kind of just, he's that asshole. So what do you expect? I mean, don't be surprised. I think we all knew this when he took office.
I think things will continue to degrade. I think that I think that our economy probably tanked.
Not to be all black pill, but to be like
12 years ago. It was like it crashed 12 years ago, maybe sooner. Maybe it's just kind of like a pendulum, though. It goes up and it goes down and it goes up and it's leveling out. I mean, unlimited growth is not sustainable.
No.
And bubbles burst. And they have to reorganize everything. That's why, I mean, the only reason why you'd wear a mask all the time and close down all these businesses for multiple years, like I heard something like Bill Gates say, like, it could be 10 years. We'll continue on this road until, like, there are 0 cases of coronavirus. Like that's
a wet dream.
Yeah, and it's gonna erase any evidence of our monetary system as we understand it. Like, maybe that's what people need, is some way to reorganize and they're gonna be like, we want a revolution, and then there's a vacuum because they don't know what it is. They burn their couch and tip some cars over, some police cars, and then they wake up in the morning and somebody else is sitting in the seat, in the catbird seat, pulling all the strings, and we think they're cool, for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, well, okay.
They come riding in on a tiger with their shirt off and a machine gun, in their hand. We're like, yeah, do it! Stick a sword in that guy! Yeah, right in his butt!
And no one ever gets the sword.
Nope. We never get this. We never, yeah.
Yeah, except for we do after that, because like if we speak up or like talk about it on our show, we get disappeared.
Yeah,
we get the sword. The other people,
yeah,
folks
exactly.
being replaced don't get the sword. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has that. We're gonna have to keep our mouths shut, kind of to go with the flow of things, because what is it gonna take for the UN to basically come in here and tell us, all right, that's it, pack it up, like get it together? What do you think? What do you think it would take? Like,
I don't think the UN would come in.
They haven't done anything so far. So to me, it looks like the plan is to let the United States. One of the plans is to let the United States basically just collapse upon itself. The whole combination of the COVID let loose, really, and civil society didn't make it work here. Like in certain countries, civil society it didn't need to be lockdowns. It didn't need to be the government doing mandates, but civil society sort of passed around information about taking care of your body and the best kind of use of distance or mask or however you want to do it. And they got together and knocked it down a lot and didn't destroy their economy as much as we did. Right. And so to me, it feels like this is actually the plan here by some aspect. And the thing about like the financial crises, whenever they are, the 2008 one was a big one. And what's interesting is there is sort of intelligence chatter in the background that it comes in the wake of very dicey things at the end of the George W. Bush administration, where you have nukes going missing from Minot Air Force Base in the Dakotas. Yep. Real massive stuff that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen unless it's a plan and someone stole it, basically. The highest levels of like U.S. Air Force nuclear forces, Stratcom,
Broken Arrow,
Broken Arrow, yeah.
Broken Arrow.
We're gonna bring you rocket. So that happened in 2006, 2007, maybe 2007, and at the same time there was a woman who was formerly on the National Security Council named Gwyneth Todd. She's now gone. She's now lives in Australia. But she was at the time in Bahrain, I think, and working with like the Navy, and looked to have been framed actually in a run-up to a potential false flag operation in that exact same time period, 2007-ish. It's basically a Dick Cheney operation, it looks like. And of course, Dick Cheney's office was the closest that was connected to the Office of Special Plans at the Pentagon, the sort of terrorist cell attachment run by Doug Feith and the neocons at the Pentagon. It was then attached to the Israeli government under Sharon, where they were also running parallel sort of information warfare in the run-up of the Iraq War. So that then runs up to 2008, which looks to have been also, these economic these are sort of deep economic events of some sort, that of course wealth doesn't actually just disappear. Like, okay, the stock market goes down, right? So, but where does the actual wealth go? It's
redistributed to the shitheads like J.P. Morgan, who got the fucking 2 days before the crash or whatever, that collected all that up, you know what I mean, or bought all those, and then here's we make 90 cents on the dollar, pay the fine, you know what I mean, like whatever, we'll just keep doing it.
But there is no wealth really, except for
like, but no, with what's happening with Bitcoin right now, I can get a gauge on what's happening, because just from looking at that and seeing it's 16, it's over 16 now, and over the summer it was 9. It was like hovering on 9. It was like 8 to 9, whatever. So I mean, double your money, whatever. And if you kind of look at it through that lens, it's like, okay, we see who's hedging against the fiat shit dollar. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, and no real heavy amount has gone in, with a whale purchase, so to speak, either. No huge whales yet. So that tells me everybody's still in on the fiat currency, which is fine. Good. That's whatever. Do whatever you're going to do with that. But, which is also a tell on this is how far away you know, you can always gauge it by prices and what it matches up to, and what they think is going to happen. I don't know what really happened with the Chinese dollar crashing on election night.
Did that happen?
Yeah, it crashed.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then it went, you know, it balanced itself back out, I guess. But yeah, it's a weird. I just don't know. It just feels like all of it just negative. Don't give us anything positive. But I mean, obviously, we know that if Trump, I don't see him win. There's no path here.
I don't think he won the election.
I don't either.
You know, but you know what's interesting is what Rove is the indicator. Once this sort of like hardcore Trump networks started, like Flynn and his lawyer, and that network started going heavy towards the not just voter fraud but election fraud, like machine rigging. Karl Rove went totally silent and then basically says, "Oh no, I think Biden got it this time," you know. And so that's suggestive that Rove actually did do some rigging, and he wants no one looking into anything involving anything voting machines, whether Dominion or ES&S. The Trump folks are not looking into ES&S. So I don't know. My sense is that it was probably rigged in the other direction, and that this Trump move is actually potentially, it's bifurcated. It's potentially dangerous in terms of the move that he made at the top of the Pentagon, and he removed the head of the National Nuclear Security Administration. She used to have been in charge of the DOE has a secret nuclear bomb squad called ness, Nuclear Emergency something, and they were out of the country on September 11th, actually, for the first time in 3 years. That's one way. That's another sort of area of evidence of some of these events, like even the Kennedy assassination. Certain key people are out of the country, are sent out of the country.
And we know that's what jets weren't scrambled. We know because they couldn't have been scrambled because he kept each, like the way that the Bush administration or Cheney's, you know, direction from what it appears to be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How
they changed. I think in the summer of 2001 there was a change via Cheney and Rumsfeld in terms of the protocol, in terms of like shoot down protocol of some sort.
Yeah, all of it. If you go back and look, it's all it's set up so perfectly so nobody could. So even if they were to have scrambled, they would never have been able to have, you know, shot these things down. None of it's even possible because they were just so far away from their respective area. One
of the very strange scenarios that when we went to DC with We Are Change LA in 2009, I think it was. That was right after Biden actually came to LA, and we got in as press, and I asked him about 9/11, and then the nanothermite paper had just come out. So I just asked him about that and 9/11 treason, and when he and Obama were going to ask the Department of Justice to do an investigation. And the whole event shut down, and the Secret Service created a perimeter. But it was interesting. He took the paper into his hands and everything, and then soon thereafter we went to. He handed the paper back to me. It's so weird. Now I'm thinking. I remember when we were on the way back to the car, I made a joke about how the reporters were saying, you know, will you keep it on topic? Like they were angry with me because we were supposed to be talking about public housing, and I linked it into public housing. But I said, don't we, in order to do proper public housing, don't we need to have rule of law and justice around 9/11 or something like that? And you know, it was adjacent, but it was fair. It's the scrum, it's the press pool, and I was making a joke on the sidewalk on the way back to the car. I was like, will you keep it on? I was like, Vice President Biden, we just had a report that the CDC has released a plague that's going to kill 5 billion people. Will you keep it on topic? So that's strange thinking back on that as the joke, you know, that came to my head in that moment. But that is what, and I have that on audio actually. Maybe I'll put that up or something. But right after that, we went to D.C., and I came up with the idea that we should put the scientific papers in a packet, and then my friend, he wrote up the cover sheet letter, and then we would put it in the key senators and representatives' hands, like as a packet. So it's sort of making it semi-official that they've been told by the citizens what the facts of 9/11 are. And the day that we arrived to D.C., there was this crazy train crash that killed killed 9 people, and one of them was the head of the Air National Guard on September 11th in D.C., David Worley. And so that was, no one else thought this, but to me, I was like, what the heck? This is very, very weird, And but at the very least, there was some like cleanup, it seemed like to me, that was going on. This guy knew what had happened. He was there to see something. He was a witness of something. All right. So back to our situation here. These economic deep events are obviously used to not only like fleece the people out of the value that's sort of been, evaporated out of stock prices or whatever. And by the way, one tangential grift story out of COVID, which I just found out about. I can't believe we didn't hear more about this, but it's very much related to, I think, Israeli compromise of the highest levels of our cyber. Is the new head of it's a new operations division in the NSA called Cyber Defense. It's a directorate in the NSA started by under Nakasone, General Nakasone, and the woman who's chosen to run it is a woman named Ann Neuberger, Orthodox Jewish woman, and sort of, it was a big deal, I guess, for the Orthodox Jewish community. And first of all, she's married to an AIPAC official. She's married to an AIPAC executive. That's obviously a foreign lobby at the very least, if not a foreign agent, definitely with a background in espionage. And she's put in charge of our cyber defense. And then you go look that Kushner's roommate put in charge of a new U.S. agency during COVID to distribute funding. It was mainly done for foreign, I think, work, but then they did it domestically, and part of that was giving all this money to Kodak, which had gone out of business basically to help.
New York.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And then so they were then alleged to have been lent hundreds of millions of dollars to participate in developing either therapeutics or vaccines for COVID. I'm not sure, out of a film company. I don't know. What? But so this Neuberger and Neuberger's parents, her mom and dad, had bought up $3 million or some $6 million in stock from Kodak, or they'd actually purchased a large percentage of it, and then $6 million of it right as this loan went through, and it goes 30x in a few days, the Kodak stock.
Wow.
And in the day of the sort of 30x, so their 6 million goes to 180 million. They put it into this newly created, it looks like, Orthodox Congregation Front Company to keep it out of the taxes. And we haven't heard any of this. I mean, there's a article in Mother Jones by David Korn that sort of puts the daughter's position in parentheses in the middle of it, titled "The White House Kodak Controversy Has a New Angle: A Billionaire's Huge Stock Gift to a Synagogue." And the subtitle has nothing to do. And the daughter is the new head of NSA Cyber Defense, who's married to an AIPAC official.
What the fuck?
This is some crazy shit. And then the deeper background, I won't get into it, but the article's titled "The Mitzvah Factory" by Roddy Boyd in the Foundation for Financial Journalism, and it shows the deeper background of her dad's company that he started with the brother. It's real. It's some shady stuff going on. So that's sort of what I'm concerned about right now in this transition, is it looks like, especially more and more, everyone's starting to hear about the dangers of the transition. This is like what happened with 9/11. The 9/11 Commission told us all of this. This happened with Bush v. Gore. Michael Chertoff, who's intimately involved in at the very least, the wake of September 11th, and not criminally investigating September 11th as the head of Criminal Division Justice, and he's on mainstream media, or at least video of it, talking about the dangers of this transition. So I am concerned that there's this bifurcated possibility with Trump where they actually go for the gusto and sort of deploy the shock troops and really try to sort of delay the situation to where the count is not even sort of seen as valid anymore, and we don't know actually what happened or something like that. And the head of this, replacing the National Nuclear Security, and then also the head of the Pentagon, the group right underneath there, Tata, and Ezra Cohen Watnick and these guys. Tata himself bragged about being on the ground in Gaza with the IDF. People don't even think it's true because it's so outrageous for a U.S. Military official to be on the ground in Gaza. They think he might be just bragging or lying about it. But at very least, it shows his close intent. And right now, there's a lot of activity starting to brew in the Middle East. And all of these guys that Trump put at the head of the Pentagon right now are serious Iran hawks. So my concern is either
we start a war, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he can't, because we're at wartime, you don't change the president. That's kind of my biggest fear.
Yeah, so either like they actually sort of get something going and maybe Netanyahu or UAE, someone in the Middle East sort of sparks it and then we're drawn into it. But the chatter is that it would probably be like a naval ship, a U.S. naval ship would be hit in the Middle East either by or at least blamed on Iran. Then the United States, we would allegedly respond to Iran. Then there's a whole scenario of people can go look at Whitney Webb's recent reporting about Israeli intelligence deep within our cybersecurity critical infrastructure under the guise of COVID, actually, in hospitals and data and working with highest levels of homeland security and all of that. And so they've been starting to choreograph or like at least pre-script a potential cyber attack, or even think about Q, about 10 nights, 10 days of darkness.
Yeah.
And I think that was like
going out.
Yeah, and wasn't that the recent message that Q finally came out with was actually said from dark to light. Sometimes you have to go through the dark to get to the light. Yeah. So that may be literal, and it may be that in relationship to a sort of Gulf of Tonkin type of scenario, and then an American or Israeli response to that, then there is a cyber quote unquote response or attack in the U.S. that's then alleged to have been Iran. That's my concern about where it might be headed, either during the transition. But then this 9/11 signaling then suggests that it actually might just be like 9/11, where we're then still dealing with the sort of COVID response, COVID tyranny under Biden-Harris, and then in that first year, similarly to the first year of Bush, there's some kind of incident or event happens. Then it's probably cyber, where that they're sort of architecting the next generation cyber and sort of in critical infrastructure. So that's the sort of geopolitics that I'm concerned about and that we need to keep our eye on. And then COVID is COVID, and it's obvious they're going to try to be as coercive as possible around the vaccines.
Obviously.
And there's going to be levels of pressure. We've already been under serious, biological war and threat here in this country for a long time, from the food to the water to the vaccines, to all that type of stuff. So people who are parents already know what it's like to be under sort of coercive pressure around medical regimes and stuff like that. So they're going to ramp it up, sure. Ticketmaster is going to start announcing and about your data card, your health card or something like that. But a lot of that's going to be sort of testing the PR.
It's like a temperature gauge.
Temperature check, right? That's right.
Yeah, it's like taking the time, making sure. And it's like, okay, and since it's real time now, it's real time. So I'm wondering, when we start seeing things that normally would be censored, or how is that making it to, on social media, that's when we can I've learned that's like a tell that's what it seems to be that's what they're doing, is taking the temperature by allowing this shit out there and letting it fester for a little bit, but then it'll come down later, right? But for the meantime, this stuff, because they're in the early stages or whatever, I don't know what to really do, take away from it, but I just know it's a signal usually. So if you start noticing odd things that you would normally, that's hate speech normally, how's that even up? Think about it for a second and just look, something else is going on, more than likely. I don't know. It's usually a tell. It's weird.
I think that the winter, the whole dark winter, is it going to be a dark winter or the darkest winter?
It's already a dark winter. Sunset's at 4:30, for Christ's sake.
That's true. And then you add COVID on top of it, and it's obvious that there is some kind of serious escalation of, forget about cases per se, because obviously the testing is not I haven't been Well, but Elon Musk was also the one who guaranteed that this would be gone in April or something like that. And so Elon Musk, sure, he woke up to the testing is funky months later. But serious analysts haven't even been paying attention to testing per se. We've been paying attention to the what the nurses have been saying on the ground and what families in relationship to people who have had severe cases are saying about their situations, not only including death, but also including long-term brain stuff, testes stuff, organ stuff. This, in some ways, it looks like a airborne, immune system disease of some sort. It's really, and it's interesting that hydroxychloroquine is used with lupus, whereas it's also an effectuator. It's an ionophore of zinc in a way that works to help deliver zinc to the intracellular space to basically help knock out the virus. So I think we need to not get stuck in the sort of like lockdown anti-mask stuff, but actually help. Yeah, it's a silly hill to die on, because to me it looks like there's a serious plague happening. Sure, it's not Ebola. It's not, And we should also be reasonable about, like, it's not an either or. It's not like sort of like maskologists, like, or people who make a religion out of masks, because it is probably the case that, like 1918, that some of the bacterial infections that came on top of the viral stuff probably was related to bad mask hygiene. So to me, from the very beginning, I've been actually putting forth like DIY salt masks, which actually work to destroy the virus because of its crystalline. The sort of virus can get sort of denatured by the spikes in a properly prepared like salt-based crystalline structure. You can also use like actual antivirals like copper sulfate and stuff like that. You can research how to make things work for yourself. And so I think that we don't want to either go sort of either way, absolutist, and at the same time talk about maintaining our own immune system, the basics, the vitamin C, the vitamin D, the zinc, even like bone broth, real bone broth, not Alex Jones freeze-dried crap, but like, like actual bone broth, with organic cider vinegar and sea salt and stuff like that. Can be very healing in the case of difficult, stuff like that. And so, and it's interesting that even the guy, who's the guy, he's not the head of the CDC, but the head of one of the health agencies, he even said at some point, he's like, the mask is actually more effective than the virus may ever be in terms of actually defending you potentially and defending others. He said that. And so that's something actually to take advantage of, I think, especially as the evidence begins to come out of how potentially fraudulent the presented science related to the novel vaccines and mRNA. And meanwhile, like the actual American civil society needs to be pushing serious, pragmatic, reasonable alternatives that also are not about locking down the entire society and entire economy, but being responsible and being smart, both for yourself and for others. And so I think that is going to be the big battle next year of every individual, obviously, and then ongoing geopolitical battles depending on how this whole Trump-Biden thing resolves.
Right. Yeah, I think that feels right to me. I mean, the whole I've never taken the stance of I don't believe that this is a thing, kind of, you know what I mean, like, or whatever, that there's no such thing as viruses either. I've also been critical, but I've had friends, I'm not going to keep bringing it up, but yeah, one of my best friends, whatever, kind of thing, like, yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, either way, I think it's a smart point.
But how about the comedian known as Andy Kaufman?
Oh, yeah. We won't even play here. No, but the thing is to make it, yeah, right. No, I think it's important, though, what you said. It's super important to it's not an either or situation. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not that clear cut. And just because of this, don't automatically resort to B, it's just like, but I don't know. The fear thing. It's not like, yeah, there's the fear around it is like some Ebola type shit, right? I mean, like where people are, not walking on, but we're seeing, trucks of dead bodies type shit, or had a direct some Night of the Living Dead type shit. Where,
similar numbers of people die of diarrhea every year.
Well, yeah, and the flu is also down 90% this year too, guys. So I don't know what to tell you. Whatever. We know there's friggin' in the riggin'. That's the point, right? I mean, that's all we really need to know, and then we can proceed from there.
Yeah, we want to be pragmatic in terms of both our knowledge and our response. And it is, of course, like we saw the pictures from China and the way the Chinese government, dealt with it so severely and so suited up and everything. It gave the vibe of, people were on edge, and how serious is this? And we should be honest also that we don't know. It would be silly to imagine that that it's not that serious, even if, let's say, just 0.1% of people die or something like that. We still don't know. There's a lot of people who have long-term situations here that they're dealing with, and we don't know how it affects men's testes over the long term, even children. Like, this is a lot of dice rolling to be doing with the next generation, to just be like, just open up the schools, put your children, it doesn't affect them. You have no clue how it's affecting their organs and all of that. So we want to err on the side of safety, but that also includes the err on the side of safety of our life and our economy and all of that. And so that's sort of the radical middle path, sort of figures all of those things out.
Yeah, man, that's well summed up.
Just don't do stupid shit all the time, people.
Yeah. Half the time.
Like
right. Do stupid shit.
Yeah, like cough into your armpit, like shake hands with your elbows, and
I don't know.
Don't get involved in telling other people what to do all the time. That's stressful. Both, like cortisol is pretty bad for you.
That's true. It's bad over the long term.
So I don't know.
So, but that also means, like, to think about other people's cortisol levels,
exactly.
even if you imagine it's sort of like their illusion or something like that. But I would say that, like, HVAC, watch out. We should stay out of, like, big HVAC systems indoors over the winter as much as we can. And of course, like, the proper response at the beginning of this thing was to stock up a little bit on the basics. So at the very least, you didn't, and everyone shamed everybody for buying toilet paper and food and all that. But that was the right response, actually, because then you could watch for what it was and didn't have to either, put other people in danger or put yourself in danger by going into sort of big HVAC spaces every week to get your needs met.
Right.
So, and with one last thought I had about what I think, because no matter what happens with the selection scenario, there are severe divides. There are violent divides, as we saw today in the streets of D.C. And the one thing that I would propose is that I think that we see political violence. Think about have you ever seen a video of like almost like a hip hop rap battle of, like, political ideas out on the streets? How many videos have you seen of, like, people clocking people and, like, taking them down and all that? I haven't seen a single video of like InfoWars versus the left on a debate, And so what I would propose, and one of the things that I learned being a hip hop teacher to young people, even though I wasn't a very talented teacher in general, I could understand how powerful hip-hop was as an expression. And so I almost imagine that our situation is similar to what hip-hop culture faced as a solution to the weapon, the crack warfare against, the Bronx and all of that in the sort of 70s and 80s. And that the response was, let's turn the Puerto Rican on black, gang violence, let's turn that to banging on wax or banging on cardboard or banging on brick walls and all of that kind of stuff. And that's especially for young men, that kind of energy of, like, aggressive, confrontational, competitive energy is crucial. It's so crucial, and it needs to be learned how to be channeled. So obviously, my stance has always been martial arts, not martial law.
Right.
But then more specifically in this political moment with the big divide, I would advocate for that we model and teach, especially the young divided men, how to like bang out their political differences and their political ideas with facts and serious analysis in the public as much as possible. And that in the absence of that, in the vacuum of that, we're going to see the spilling out of the political warfare and the disinformation-based violence, stochastic disintegration of American civil society. So that's what I'm advocating for 2021, is bang your political ideas on in terms of like competition of skills and analysis and rhetoric, rather than sort of like slugging someone you don't know in the street. Exactly. Or like doing something on Twitter or Facebook, outing somebody or something like that.
Yeah, doxing somebody thinking you're doing something. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's a good way to sum it up too, man. Seriously.
Very well said.
I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't know the last time I heard a decent battle, honestly. Going line for line. I don't remember. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on on what station is that in New York? What is it? Isn't that the Breakfast Club? Don't they run that station now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hot 97.
Hot 97. That's right.
Hey, I heard a rap battle tonight actually. I was working and at work, the city built a homeless camp, like, and put it right down by my work. So like all these folks like do the walk down the street from the 7-Eleven store to the homeless camp, like every night at the curfew time. Yep. And there was a pretty tight little badass battle going on when I left. I was like, wow,
that's sweet.
Must
nice,
be must be Saturday night.
Right.
They're getting ready for Weavingspiders welcome. That's what they must have been doing.
Must have. But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it there, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank y'all for having me.
4 hours, dude. Jeremy, thank you for hanging out a bunch. Really appreciate you, man.
Definitely.
And yeah, where they can find you online, everything. You want to give that info?
Jeremy WRK on Twitter, and then The Antedote, ANTEDOTE, on YouTube and Patreon. And then our program in Kansas City called Understanding Israel Palestine Beyond the Walls, and we'll probably have some podcasts sort of uploaded and available soon there too.
Sweet. Now I got
very cool.
Now I got MLP stuck in my head. Annie up.
Annie up.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely follow you on Twitter and.
Good to talk to you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
get your
Thank you,
input
Jim.
on
Thank
some
you, David.
stuff.
Yeah.
Cheers, Jeremy.
All right, cool.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Buddy.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
Appreciate y'all.
You guys.
All right, good night.
All right, good night.